Let's work on your English listening skills. You're about to hear a real, unscripted, unedited conversation between me and my friend Nikki. We're both from the UK, and the topic of our discussion is holidays and travelling. Enjoy. So Nikki, we recently went camping, not me and you, but my family went camping just for a weekend as a kind of like a taster. To see how we, as a family with young children, coped with camping. Because I went camping as a kid, I'm sure you did as well.
Yeah.
But I've not done it as an adult with young children, and I always thought that it might be quite a stressful experience. But you've kind of encouraged me to give it a try because you're quite a seasoned camper, aren't you?
Yeah. We've. I did go camping. They were all my family holidays existed of was camping. And then when I met Neil, my husband, we went camping, and then having children, we went camping throughout because it was affordable.
Oh, so that's the main draw.
Probably, yeah. And there's also so many lovely parts of this country to explore. Yeah. And my husband loves going on walks and hikes and climbing and stuff like that. So
he's very outdoorsy, isn't he?
He is, yeah. And so going to Cornwall and all around the south coast, we've done a lot of that.
Have you ever had any like horrific camping experiences that have made you go, maybe camping's not for me anymore?
Yeah, that's usually to do with the weather.
Right.
We've had quite horrific storms when we've been camping in Cornwall.
Yeah.
On the cliff top, and very windy, lots of rain. And when it's windy, if you've got a tent that's got very fine, thin canvas, it flaps, and that's very noisy. Then we changed our tent, and we were in a trailer tent, and that was quite old school, heavy canvas, metal poles, and so there was a lot of squeaking and rocking and stuff. So that was, it's very noisy. And then you get the flooding as well if things are touching the side. Or we were always camping downhill a bit. So the floods would come down and...
You get the runoff of all the rainwater.
Yeah.
I would have thought that by now, that thing about, touching the side of the tent. So if you're inside the tent and you touch the side of the tent, anyone who's been camping will know it can let the rainwater actually come in, which is a bit of a nightmare when you're using blow-up beds. We've got these enormous blow-up beds. So when we went camping recently, our beds were really pushing out on the sides. And unfortunately, in our 3 nights, I think it was, that we were camping, we did have thunderstorms. And so that's always a concern. But I would have thought by now, technology would have moved on so that tents now don't have that. But I guess it's about it being breathable. I don't know.
Because even if it hasn't rained, you've got condensation as well.
Yeah.
And you only, I think because of the breathing and the body heat, and then the difference in the air temperature from night, you touch the sides and it can be wet coming through.
Yeah. I remember going to Aconcagua, which is a mountain in Argentina. I think I've got that right. I went there, I was there. And we were walking up to a base camp there and a little beyond that. And so we had to stay overnight. Maybe we had 2 nights on the mountainside. And we were in these big teepee tents, and it was well set up. It was this huge tent, and within the tent it could sleep about 16 people, and there was like all sorts of different hikers there from all over the world. And Nick and I, this is like our first couples adventure, and they had bunk beds set up, just very basic bunk beds, not very comfortable, and you would just like grab a bunk bed with
So was it all open plan?
All open plan,
inside?
Just beds in the middle and beds all around the outside.
Wow.
And that thing you said about condensation was what we had to deal with on the 2 nights we were there. There were a couple of beds that seemed like they were the best beds in the house. And we're like, why has no one taken these beds? These are like really like prime location in the right part of the tent. But we realised, you're throwing your stuff on and they were quite wet. And you're like, oh, why are they wet? What's gone on here? Let's choose another bed. But then in the night, there were these pools of condensation from all the breathers in the tent because there's, maybe 10 bodies there.
Yeah.
It's really cold outside because it's snowy. There's like a glacier there and there's snow on the mountain.
Wow.
So it's cold. And so all this condensation in this tent just meant at some point in the night you had this drip drip, drip, and you might have to change bed because you're getting covered in someone's breath. Pretty gross. But yeah, so your bad experiences have always kind of hinged on if it was bad weather.
The weather, really, yeah.
And do you ever go camping like as a romantic thing, just you and Neil, or is it always a big family and friends kind of venture?
Well, before we had children, we did go camping together in the Lake District, and then off to Blackpool for a couple of nights. And it's nice because if you've got a small tent and you're very basic camping, you can pack down and go off somewhere else. And but I think if I wanted romance now, I'd probably go a bit more deluxe and maybe glamping. Right. Or a caravan, not a caravan, a camper van.
Oh, right, okay.
So 5 years ago, for our 20th wedding anniversary, we got a train to Edinburgh and then hired a camper van and travelled the west side of Scotland, which was lovely. And that was, again, you pitched somewhere every night. You could pitch up on the roadside by a lake or a loch, or you could go to a campsite as well.
Yeah, and do you hook up? Do you need to hook up, or like do you have like toilet stuff that you have to empty, or how does that stuff work?
So if you are on the roadside, it is pretty basic. So you squat by the side, find a bush somewhere.
Yeah.
But you've got your electric and gas on board, so you don't need electric hookup.
Oh right, so you have like a gas canister.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
If it's just for one night, and then when the van is running, we're charging our phones and things.
Okay.
So that was fine. But every now and then, you wanted a decent shower and a bit of luxury when you're going to the loo. So you would go on a campsite.
Yeah, very nice. I've not done a camper van. We thought about it. And you can just hire them on like Airbnb. You can hire them, go travel to a place, hire a van, do what you did, just travel around an area and bring it back. I think that might be a good option.
Yeah.
And glamping is certainly, well, it's like a fad, isn't it? Although I think it's, here for the long term.
Yeah.
Which is just like glamorous camping, glamping. They tend to be like yurts is the word for these more kind of long-term permanent tent structures. They're still canvas, but they're more permanent, often put up with wooden poles. And you have a little bit of luxury in there, so there might be electricity provided,
a proper bed,
which is really important, and then maybe like a rug or some sort of flooring within, so you're not just on the like dirt floor. So that's the glamour. That's as far as it goes. So you're obviously really into camping, which I always found initially quite surprising because you're quite a glamour puss, I would say.
Really?
Yeah. Well, you always you have nice clothes and you always present yourself really nicely. You come across as caring about how you look. You wear nice jewellery. You always do your hair really well, and you visit the hairdressers often. You like to treat yourself, and so I always thought that was a bit of a disconnect because you seem, like you prefer like a 5-star hotel where you'd be pampered. But do you ever do that kind of stuff? Do you do the hotel holidays? And
I've never done a hotel holiday with my family,
right?
With children or with extended family. So I've been on a city break and stayed in a lovely place or apartments, and we've done holidays abroad where we've stayed in villas.
Right.
But I've never, apart from our honeymoon, I've never done all-inclusive hotel, high-end hotel.
It's always self-catering.
Yeah, so this year we're going to Santorini and we're staying in 2 places on the island, and it's breakfast included.
Right.
But there isn't anywhere to cook, so we can't shop and cook, which I'm fine with because I don't want to do shopping and cooking and washing up. So we'll just be eating out. And there'll be some lovely places, I'm sure.
Okay. And do you avoid the all-inclusive holidays because of the cost?
No, it's more because my husband doesn't want to be tied to one hotel providing the food if the food's not great, and you feel like you've got to stay there then because you've paid for it within the holiday cost. But you can get some hotels that have got like 12 restaurants and all different, different areas, different types of food.
Lots of variety.
Yeah,
Lots
but
of things to choose from.
yeah, I've never done that.
Yeah, I haven't, but for me it's always been because of the cost. I've always kind of tried to look for budget-friendly options when going on holiday. So often like last-minute deals, or sometimes half board or bed and breakfast if we're doing a hotel. Or like when we went to Argentina, it was literally just going from hostel to hostel. I don't think I do that these days. As you get older, you think you have what is it, like less patience, or you just want a little bit more security when you're traveling, especially when you've got a family with you as well.
And then when you're even older still and you haven't got family, and like Neil and I are just starting to holiday without our children, we want a bit more luxury now. So we can go to it from extremes. So we would go camping and really rough it, but we would also, we've been looking at holidays with jacuzzis on the balcony, or hot tubs and private swimming pools and stuff. So there's a nice flip side to having a bit of luxury now and again.
Hot tubs are the rage at the moment, aren't they? I think even in centre parks you can just get your normal like lodge, or a luxury lodge with a hot tub. It's like you have to have a hot tub to make your holiday super. I had a holiday in centre parks for my 40th birthday and decided to spend that extra cash to get a hot tub. But for the whole week that I was there for my 40th birthday, it was really bad weather. Oh, no. So I remember being like, come on everyone, in the evening once the kids were asleep, to my mum, my dad, my partner Nick, like, come on, get your swimming costumes on, we're going outside in the hot tub. And they're like, Anna, it's really stormy and cold. Like, yes, but I paid for it, we're going to enjoy it.
And it's hot when you get in.
Yeah,
it's just cold when you get out.
It was lovely, but it was quite unusual.
So we've got a hot tub in Santorini, really nice big shaped hot tub, but I'm assuming that if it's so hot you can also have it cold,
to
so
refresh
that you wouldn't want to be getting in a hot tub in the middle of the summer in Santorini. So
I think they're more in those hot places. I think they're more for like the evening, aren't they, for just in the evening once the sun's
watching the
down.
sunset.
That'd be nice. And so Neil is really, he's really outdoorsy, isn't he? We said that he likes going out hiking and stuff like that. Have you accompanied him on these kind of really adventurous like hikes and trips? Because he does a lot of weekends away doing like camping and things. Yeah,
so he kind of knows my limits. So he wouldn't take me to probably Snowdon or somewhere like that. He takes my younger daughter.
Right.
She can keep up with him. I can't do a few flights of stairs. So
really?
Without needing to break and have a pause to get my breath back. But I did climb, what was it? Sir Arthur's Mount, or Sir Arthur's Chair in Scotland.
Yeah.
So that was like a mini mountain.
Right.
Some people call it a hill. But I needed hiking sticks to get up.
Walking sticks.
Yeah. And I did find that easier, actually. And also coming down, they're very useful. And I think if I had those more on walking holiday or hikes, it would be easier.
Yeah, I use those. Nick and I use those when we're walking, because especially if it's like not steady underfoot, if it's a little bit off road, and there's like loose stones and gravel and things, then having sticks can really just help you to keep your balance.
Yeah,
especially me, I get quite dizzy. So is Neil? Has he got quite a lot of patience when he's out walking with you on the occasions that he is? Does he kind of take his time, or is he always kind of saying, come on, keep up, like cracking the whip?
No, I think he is quite patient, because he likes to look around and absorb what's around him as well. And he loves looking at the trees or foraging.
Yeah.
When you forage for different things.
Yeah.
He recently went on a bushcraft kind of therapy course, and he learned a lot about the different foods that you could use, like nettles, that you could use to make a healing, or you can make soap with nettles.
Right, okay.
You can make a healing ointment with, I think it's nettles as well, which you wouldn't think because they sting you, but you can actually eat them and they don't sting in your mouth. Nettle tea, and different soups. If you're out in the wild, he
Yeah.
would love to do sustainable living and
Like living off grid.
like being Bear Grylls kind
Yeah.
of thing. And
Yeah.
he would. He really would.
Amazing.
Yeah.
When we went on our Argentina holiday, we went up to, what was the name? There's a really famous glacier, and I'm just terrible for not being able to remember the name of it. But there's a really famous glacier. Oh no, that wasn't the one. Okay, cut. Start again. When we went to Argentina, there was a day when we went to do a full day hike, and at the end of, I think it was like a 5-hour walk there. And at the end of it, there's this big bowl and a glacier, and it was beautiful. It was a hard hike. We got there and we took our little Bunsen burner, and our plan was to get there to get a chunk of ice and boil it down to make a cup of tea with glacial water, which we did, and then that was it. That was our goal. Just get there, have glacial tea, and then walk back. It was beautiful.
How was that tasting?
It's just lovely. I mean, it's
normal.
really, it's really probably very old.
Yeah.
Probably very old water.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, everything up there in the mountains tends to be a lot fresher than, especially in London, what you get out the pipes here. I dread to think. When we first moved into this house that we're in, we had a lead pipe. I don't know if you were aware of that. We had a lead pipe which provided our water, and these days you're not supposed to have lead piping for your water because the lead seeps into the water and it can give you lead poisoning. And so when we had someone come round to check our plumbing, they said, you realise you've got a lead pipe in the house for your water, you need to get that changed. So we did. Yeah. So I'm sure glacial ice provided much cleaner water than we get out of the taps.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, coming back to holidays, last question. What is the best holiday experience you've ever had? Can you pinpoint it? We had so many that it's hard to pick one.
Yeah, I mean, a holiday probably to remember for us was Disney World in Florida.
Oh, you went to Disney World?
Yeah, we did 2 weeks, and that was when my oldest daughter, who's nearly 22, she turned 9 while we were out there, and I had a birthday out there because we're 4 days between.
Right.
And we did a week. Well, I can't remember what we did. We did Universal and the Magic Kingdom and Epcot. And we stayed in a hotel, not really a hotel, like apartments that had a communal pool.
Right.
A bit out of the park district. And then we spent a couple of days in Clearwater as well, near the beach and stuff. So that was lovely.
So that was just the 4 of you?
That was the 4 of
your
us,
two daughters and
it was exhausting.
Yes.
It is exhausting.
Your youngest daughter would have been
She
how old?
would have been nearly 5.
Right.
So
really
yeah,
magical
she was,
for her.
Yeah. And it was lovely because there's 4 years between them. And the older one is old enough to remember it and old enough to still be young enough to still be mesmerised by the princesses, and she got glammed up in the bibbidi boppidi boutique, and we went swimming with dolphins for her birthday.
Was that in one of the parks?
That was in Discovery Cove, which is like a special dolphin place where you can swim with the stingrays and the sharks.
Wow.
So that was beautiful.
Amazing.
So that was lovely. It was exhausting having 2 young children, but it was lovely to experience the magic through them.
Yeah.
And to I wouldn't like to do it now nowadays. I can't remember any of the rides and the things like that, but I just remembered like the parades, the fireworks, and the food was amazing.
Oh, really? That's good. Because often I find with theme parks, I feel like they fall down on the food, especially the ones that we go to around here. Not that we're surrounded by theme parks, but we are in the south, so there's quite a few theme parks close by, and it always tends to be that kind of very fast food kind of food that's kind of mass produced, not very healthy, not very tasty kind of stuff.
Well, I think we ate out in a few restaurants and also we were catering for ourselves in the evening. So we didn't eat so much of park food. We would make picnics and take our own packed lunches and then come back and eat, or eat outside of the park.
Yeah.
For that reason, probably. But I remember the portions being huge. And I remember Lauren being given a pizza and then a cup of Parmesan cheese.
Oh, wow.
And there's a photo actually of her. But she said, do I have to eat all this cheese? Because she thought that was for her and that was part of the meal. But I said, no, that's just to shake on. But the portions were huge. Yeah. But it was just lovely experience.
Yeah, good.
But my favourite holiday aside of that would probably be the tour in Scotland, which I never thought I would have enjoyed. Touring Scotland in a camper van. But we were really lucky to have some beautiful weather.
Yeah.
And it was just outside of the season with the midges all coming into.
Yeah.
So it was really lovely, and it was out of the school holiday, so it wasn't so busy. Beautiful beaches, and every turn that we made or every hill that we went over, there was a different view. So sometimes it felt like we were in the Rockies.
Yeah.
Sometimes it felt like we were just in film sets. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And you never knew where you were going to sleep the next night,
so
because you're moving on. Yeah. So it was really good to see a lot of it and different experiences.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time touring Scotland as an actress when I first left college, maybe 2-3 years. And we had the same experience that even though it was, the winter time, there'd be days when I think sunny winter days are beautiful anyway. It's crisp and the colours are different. But in Scotland, it's such a beautiful landscape. They've got so much to offer, quite extreme landscapes at times. But it's also largely untouched. The population's not very large, and so there's lots of countryside that's just
natural,
as is.
Yeah.
And the colours up there in the autumn and the winter are stunning, and we would be trying to find these remote little primary schools to go and do our pantomimes to, and be just finding these stunning roads that we were driving along, and amazing scenery, and just thinking, wow, this is really unexpected, because you think Scotland in winter, you just think lots of rain, just endless torrents of rain.
Yeah.
But not always the case. Well, anyway, thank you for sharing all your thoughts and experiences with the holidays. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's taken me back to some lovely memories. Yeah, it's been nice.
Now it's time to dive a little deeper into some of the things that were said during that conversation. Let's start. So Nikki, we recently went camping, not me and you, but my family went camping just for a weekend as a kind of like a taster to see how we as a family with young children coped with camping. Because I went camping as a kid, I'm sure you did as well.
Yeah.
But I've not done it as an adult with young children, and I always thought that it might be quite a stressful experience, but you've kind of encouraged me to give it a try, because you're quite a seasoned camper, aren't you? To describe someone as a seasoned something, a seasoned camper, a seasoned traveller, means that they have a lot of experience in doing that thing.
Yeah. I did go camping. They were all my family holidays existed of was camping. And then when I met Neil, my husband, we went camping, and then having children, we went camping throughout because it was affordable.
Oh, so that's the main draw. The main draw. This is using the word draw to encourage, to entice, to pull in. If you draw something to you, then you bring it in. It's not about taking a pencil or a pen and making a picture. It's all about encouraging something to come towards you. So what draws you to a certain activity? So I said rather, that's the main draw. That's the main thing that makes you want to go camping.
Probably, yeah. And there's also so many lovely parts of this country. to explore, and my husband loves going on walks and hikes and climbing and stuff like that. So
he's very outdoorsy, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
To be outdoorsy. I think this is quite self-explanatory, but it means that you are the kind of person who is very comfortable and enjoys being outdoors, doing outdoor kinds of activities. You could be someone who likes outdoor climbing or paragliding, hiking, mountain biking. So if you're outdoorsy, you enjoy outdoor activity. Are you outdoorsy?
And so going to Cornwall and all around the south coast, we've done a lot of that.
Yeah.
Camping.
Have you ever had any like horrific camping experiences that have made you go, maybe camping's not for me anymore?
Yeah, that's usually to do with the weather.
Right.
Here, Nikki said that's usually to do with the weather. To do with, this little phrase means related to, or that's what it's about. So if I say, why is your friend upset? Have I upset her? Then you might say, no, it's got nothing to do with you or what you said. It's actually to do with her family. She's had a fallout with her family. So it's to do with, it's related to, connected to something else.
We've had quite horrific storms when we've been camping in Cornwall.
Yeah.
On the cliff top, and very windy, lots of rain. And when it's windy, if you've got a tent that's got very fine, thin canvas, it flaps, and that's very noisy. Then we changed our tent, and we were in a trailer tent, and that was quite old school, heavy canvas, metal poles.
Here, Nikki described the old heavy canvas of a tent being old school. If you describe something as old school, it's similar to being old fashioned, but it's got a sense of coolness to it. So something in the past was quite cool, but it's still found occasionally today, and it's still cool. Then we call it old school. For example, if I decided to go out wearing fashion that was the fashion back in the 90s, and I was listening to some of the best songs on my Walkman, then you might say, wow, Anna's pretty old school.
And so there was a lot of squeaking and rocking and stuff. So that was, it's very noisy. And then you get the flooding as well, if things are touching the side. Or we were always camping downhill a bit. So the floods would come down and...
You get the runoff of all the rainwater.
Yeah.
Now here I said, get the runoff of all the rainwater. The runoff when talking about rain is when all the rain lands on a surface and it comes together and literally moves off the surface where it's come together. So for example, the roof of a building, when it rains all over the roof. But the roofs tend to be sloped because of rain, and there's usually guttering. So there's usually some sort of open pipe that will collect the runoff. So the runoff is the movement of water. Usually we use this when talking about rain. So all the water moving collectively after rainfall.
I would have thought that by now, that thing about, touching the side of the tent. So if you're inside the tent and you touch the side of the tent, anyone who's been camping will know it can let the rainwater actually come in, which is a bit of a nightmare when you're using blow-up beds.
Just in case you're not familiar with the term blow-up bed, is an inflatable bed. It starts off flat and although you don't blow it up with your mouth, usually you have a foot pump. Actually, our blow-up beds, you plug them in, press a button and it just goes and it inflates.
Mm-hmm.
We've got these enormous blow-up beds. So when we went camping recently, our beds were really pushing out on the sides. And unfortunately, in our 3 nights, I think it was, that we were camping, we did have thunderstorms. And so that's always a concern. But I would have thought by now, technology would have moved on.
Now here I said, by now I thought that technology would have moved on. Here, the phrasal verb move on means to advance or progress. You might say that food processing technology hasn't moved on in the last decade. I don't think that's true, but if it were true, if food processing equipment hasn't progressed in 10 years, then you could say it hasn't moved on, or it has moved on quite considerably.
So that tents now don't have that, but I guess it's about it being breathable. I don't know.
Yeah, because even if it hasn't rained, you've got condensation as well.
Yeah.
And you only, I think because of the breathing and the body heat, and then the difference in the air temperature from night, you touch the sides and it can be wet coming through.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I remember going to Aconcagua, which is a mountain in Argentina. I think I've got that right. I went there, I was there. And we were walking up to a base camp there and a little beyond that. And so we had to stay overnight. Maybe we had 2 nights on the mountainside. And we were in these big teepee tents. And it was well set up. It was this huge tent. And within the tent, it could sleep about 16 people. And there was like all sorts of different hikers there from all over the world. And Nick and I, this is like our first couples adventure. And they had bunk beds set up, just very basic bunk beds, not very comfortable.
Bunk beds, if you're not familiar with this phrase, refers to 2 beds that are stacked one on top of the other. These are very popular with children because if you have a number of kids and you don't have enough rooms or much space within your house, then you can put 2 beds in a room and provide sleeping space for 2 children.
And you would just like grab a bunk bed with
so was it all open plan?
Now, Nikki asks if it was all open plan within this tent. If something is open plan, we use this to describe lots of houses or accommodation. Open plan means that the rooms aren't really separated, that you've got a big space that everyone is just in and all the functioning areas are just open within that space. So an open plan living area in the downstairs of a house would mean that the kitchen and the dining and the living room area are not separated by walls. They're all in one big open space.
All open plan,
Inside.
just beds in the middle and beds all around the outside.
Wow.
And that thing you said about condensation was what we like had to deal with on the 2 nights we were there. There were a couple of beds that seemed like they were the best beds in the house.
Now, this phrase might seem confusing because I said that these beds seemed to be the best in the house. When we talk about something being of the house or the best in the house, we're normally just saying it's the best in that space. So, for example, when you go to a theatre or some sort of entertainment venue, then you might buy the best seats in the house. These are the best seats in the house. Or, I can't believe you bought these seats. They're the worst seats in the house. I mean, it's a theatre, not a house, but we still say the best seats in the house. When you are at a restaurant, you could request house red or house white, which means the red wine that is the common red wine that they sell in that particular restaurant, or their common default white wine would be their house white.
And we were like, why has no one taken these beds? These are like really like prime location in the right part of the tent.
Prime location. This phrase is often used when talking about houses or accommodation. Prime location is like the best location, either because it's the most convenient or it's the most desirable. Maybe it's close to facilities that people like to be close to, like a gym or a nice park, a river or a train station to commute into the local town. I kind of sarcastically used this phrase to say that some beds were in the best part of the tent, the prime location of the tent.
But we realised, you're throwing your stuff on and they were quite wet. And you're like, oh, why are they wet? What's gone on here? Let's choose another bed.
Now here, I used the phrasal verb go on. I said, what's going on here or what's gone on here? To go on in this context means happen. Often people will say, what's going on? Or what went on yesterday? There was a lot of people hanging around on the corner of the street. What went on? Or what was going on during that time? They're basically asking what happened or what was happening. Tell me.
But then in the night, there were these pools of condensation from all the breathers in the tent because there's, maybe 10 bodies there.
I talked about condensation from all the breathers. Here, the word breathers is not a typical way to refer to a group of people, but here I'm just referring to a group of people that are breathing. Condensation is where moisture in the air hits a cold surface like a window and turns back into liquid. So if you have moisture or water droplets on the insides of your windows on a cold morning, that's condensation.
Yeah.
It's really cold outside because it's snowy. There's like a glacier there and there's snow on the mountain.
Wow.
So it's cold. And so all this condensation in this tent just meant at some point in the night you had this drip, 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 and you might have to change bed because you're getting covered in someone's breath. Pretty gross.
Pretty gross. This means very unpleasant or really disgusting. Pretty gross. I also used the phrasal verb hinged on. To hinge on means that something that changes the balance. It's an important point that could flip the balance, like a hinge of a door. A hinge will either mean that a door is open or closed. If a situation hinges on a specific factor, then it relies on that factor to determine the outcome. Your experience of camping has always hinged on the weather. That's how I should have phrased that. So the weather can either make it an amazing experience or a terrible experience.
But yeah, so your bad experiences have always kind of hinged on if it was bad weather.
The weather, really, yeah.
And do you ever go camping like as a romantic thing, just you and Neil, or is it always a big family and friends kind of venture?
Okay, I used the word venture here instead of adventure. Venture just refers to an activity, but it often has this sense of risk or uncertainty attached to it. So you might consider camping a bit of a venture. You don't know if it's going to be an amazing experience where the sun is shining every day, it's the perfect temperature, and there's no wind and everything is wonderful, or if it's going to be thunderstorms, high winds that will blow your tent away, terrible rain that will wash your tent away. It's a bit of a venture. So there's risk involved in this activity.
Well, before we had children, we did go camping together in the Lake District and then off to Blackpool for a couple of nights. And it's nice because if you've got a small tent and you're very basic camping, you can pack down and go off somewhere else. And but I think if I wanted romance now, I'd probably go a bit more deluxe and maybe glamping or a caravan, not a caravan, a camper van.
Oh, right, okay.
Interesting. Here, Nikki said the word deluxe. Deluxe is another way of describing something that's luxury or like better than the standard. And glamping, as I explained in the conversation, is a combination of the word glamorous and camping. So it's a glamorous version of camping.
So 5 years ago, for our 20th wedding anniversary, we got a train to Edinburgh and then hired a camper van and travelled the west side of Scotland, which was lovely. And that was, again, you pitched somewhere every night. You could pitch up on the roadside by a lake or a loch.
Nikki used the word pitch when talking about putting up the tent. To pitch or to pitch up is the verb that we use when talking about setting up your tent or your camper van or your caravan. So where you decide to stop for a certain period is where you pitch. And that area is often known as your pitch. So when you are going camping, you will pay for a pitch. And when you arrive, they'll say your pitch is over there. And you go to your pitch and you pitch up your tent.
Or you could go to a campsite as well.
Yeah, and do you hook up? Do you need to hook up, or like do you have like toilet stuff that you have to empty, or how does that stuff work?
Now I use the phrasal verb hook up. So to hook up when we're talking about camping is to connect your electricity. So particularly if you have a caravan or a camper van, you will have electrics on board in the actual vehicle. And all you need to do is connect the main wires to the mains electric. There'll be a mains box somewhere and then you are powered. I recently went camping and we decided to get a pitch with electric hookup so that we could take our wires, and we ran a wire from the box over to our tent, and then we had multiple plugs that we could actually then plug in our little mini fridge, charge our phones, and have a light that we could just switch on and off nice and easily, and we didn't have to rely on battery power.
So if you are on the roadside, it is pretty basic. So you squat by the side, find a bush somewhere.
Yeah.
Here, Nikki is using the word squat. If someone is caught short, meaning that they need the toilet, but there's not a facility around, so they're nowhere near an actual public loo, then they may need to find somewhere to squat. They're probably going to squat in the bushes or somewhere private that they can find. With my children, I call this a wild wee. They need a wild wee, or they have a wild wee if we are nowhere near any public facilities.
But you've got your electric and gas on board.
The phrase on board just means it is literally on the vehicle. So we talk about being on board a ship, on board a bus. So when you are on something, it is on board, or you are on board.
So you don't need electric hookup.
Oh, right. So you have like a gas canister.
Yeah.
Right.
A gas canister, for anyone who doesn't know, is a tub or pot that contains gas. We call it a gas canister.
Okay.
If it's just for one night, and then when the van is running, we're charging our phones and things.
Okay.
So that was fine. But every now and then, you wanted a decent shower and a bit of luxury when you're going to the loo. So you would go on a campsite.
Yeah, very nice. I've not done a camper van. We thought about it. And you can just hire them on like Airbnb. You can hire them, go travel to a place, hire a van, do what you did, just travel around an area and bring it back. I think that might be a good option.
Yeah.
And glamping is certainly, well, it's like a fad, isn't it? Although I think it's, here for the long term.
Yeah.
A fad is something that becomes popular quite quickly in popular culture. So lots of people are talking about it. It becomes the thing that is in all the magazines, in news articles. Everyone's posting pictures about it on social media. It's a fad. Often fads are short-lived.
Which is just like glamorous camping, glamping.
Glamour-puss. So I referred to Nikki as a glamour-puss. A glamour-puss is a way of describing a person who's quite glamorous, who is always well-dressed, always has their hair done nicely, just looks glamorous. Nikki is definitely a glamour-puss.
They tend to be like yurts is the word for these more kind of long-term permanent tent structures. They're still canvas, but they're more permanent, often put up with wooden poles, and you have a little bit of luxury in there. So there might be electricity provided,
A proper bed,
which is really important, and then maybe like a rug or some sort of flooring within, so you're not just on the like dirt floor. So that's the glamour. That's as far as it goes. So you're obviously really into camping, which I always found initially quite surprising, because you're quite a glamour puss, I would say.
Really?
Yeah. Well, you always you have nice clothes, and you always present yourself really nicely. You come across as.
To come across as. This is a phrasal verb that means how you are perceived by other people. I believe that I am warm and friendly and helpful, but I might come across as grumpy and selfish. So how you come across is how other people see you, which might be different to how you think you are portraying yourself. How do you come across? Well, I hope.
Not caring about how you look. You wear nice jewelry, you always do your hair really well, and you visit the hairdressers often. You like to treat yourself, and so I always thought that was a bit of a disconnect, because you seem like you prefer like a 5-star hotel where you'd be pampered.
To be pampered is to be treated in a way that's quite relaxing. So if a woman talks about getting together with her friends for a night of pampering, then they're probably referring to having their nails done, doing their toenails, maybe putting a nice treatment on their hair, probably a face pack. They might hire in a masseuse or someone to do a facial, a head and shoulders massage. To be pampered. My partner gave me a whole hour to myself to enjoy a nice bubble bath with rose petals in it, and a glass of wine and some nice chocolates, my favorite chocolates, and I felt like I was being pampered. I had some time to relax.
But do you ever do that kind of stuff? Do you do the hotel holidays? And
I've never done a hotel holiday with my family,
right?
With children or with extended family. So I've been on a city break
A city break is a short trip, normally 2, 3, or 4 nights in a major city. So a city break might be a weekend in Bath or Edinburgh, maybe a trip over to Paris for a few nights. That would be a city break.
And stayed in a lovely place or apartments. And we've done holidays abroad where we've stayed in villas.
Right.
But I've never, apart from our honeymoon,
A honeymoon is the holiday that you take after you get married. So it's the holiday the married couple will take after they have their wedding ceremony.
never done all-inclusive hotel, high-end hotel.
It's always like self-catering.
An all-inclusive hotel is, or an all-inclusive holiday would be a holiday where you have the hotel that includes your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner, so your 3 meals of the day, and usually drinks would be included. So you can go to the bar and get any drinks at any point on an all-inclusive holiday. High end means luxury. So something that is high end would be more expensive, it would be better quality. And self-catering is where you have an accommodation which has a kitchen so that you can cater for yourself. So you can cook and you have a fridge to store food in, microwave oven, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So this year we're going to Santorini and we're staying in 2 places on the island, and it's breakfast included.
Right.
But there isn't anywhere to cook, so we can't shop and cook, which I'm fine with because I don't want to do shopping and cooking and washing up. So we'll just be eating out.
To eat out, this just refers to going out to a restaurant or cafe for your meals.
And there'll be some lovely places, I'm sure.
Okay. And do you avoid the all-inclusive holidays because of the cost?
No, it's more because my husband doesn't want to be tied to...
To be tied to something means to be stuck. Like either you feel obliged to stay somewhere or with someone, you're tied to them, or that you have to stay with a certain thing because you've paid for it. So the reason that Nikki's husband didn't like the idea of an all-inclusive holiday was because he didn't want to be tied to with the same restaurants, the same options for food. He didn't want to be committed to the hotel food.
One hotel providing the food, if the food's not great, and you feel like you've got to stay there then because you've paid for it within the holiday cost. But you can get some hotels that have got like 12 restaurants and all different, different areas, different types of food.
Lots of variety.
Yeah,
Lots of things to choose from.
Yeah, I've never done that.
Yeah, I haven't, but for me it's always been because of the cost. I've always kind of tried to look for budget friendly.
Budget friendly. This just refers to something that is affordable for your budget. If something is budget friendly, it's a nice way of saying cheap or cheaper.
Options when going on holiday. So often like last minute deals or...
A last minute deal refers to something that you buy at the last minute and it's extra cheap because it's last minute. So for example, if you book a holiday, you would often book it months in advance. You book your flights, you book your hotel. However, if you are daring or something changes at the very last minute and you decide to book today for a holiday where the flights go out in 2 days' time, then that's a last minute holiday. And because it's so last minute, because you're booking it last minute, it's going to be cheaper. Therefore, it will be a deal. So you could go to your travel agents and say, hey, I'm free this weekend. Do you have any last minute city breaks? Do you have any last minute deals on city breaks?
Sometimes half board or bed and breakfast if we're doing a hotel.
Half board is a holiday where you pay for the hotel and breakfast and lunch is usually included, but not your evening meal. Maybe in some cases it's a different combination. Bed and breakfast is just your breakfast included with the accommodation.
Or like when we went to Argentina, it was literally just going from hostel to hostel. I don't think I'd do that these days. As you get older, you think you have what is it, like less patience, or you just want a little bit more security when you're traveling, especially when you've got a family with you as well.
Yeah, and then when you're even older still and you haven't got family, and like Neil and I are just starting to holiday without our children,
Right.
we want a bit more luxury
Yeah.
now. So we can go to from extremes.
So here, Nikki got confused between two phrases. So she started with one phrase, but then changed her mind and moved to a different phrase. And then together, that didn't quite make sense. She says, we can go to from extremes. What she started saying was, we can go from one extreme to another. That's one phrase. We can go from one extreme to another. So if we're talking about temperature, to go from one extreme to another is to go from freezing cold to boiling hot. So you can say, oh, our weather. It goes from one extreme to another. On Sunday, it was snowing. On Monday morning, it was a heat wave. But we can also say to go to extremes, which just means you move to the extreme of whatever the situation is.
So we would go camping and really rough it.
Here she said, really rough it. To rough it is kind of like a colloquial slang phrase meaning to do things that aren't luxury, like to sleep on a camping bed or to sleep on the floor. Maybe you're eating very basic food just cooked on an open fire. That would be to rough it. The word rough we would often also use for people if they are sleeping on the street. So someone who is homeless, we would say they're sleeping rough.
But we would also, we've been looking at holidays with jacuzzis on the balcony, or hot tubs and private swimming pools and stuff. So there's a nice flip side.
Here, Nikki said a nice flip side. So when we talk about the flip side, we're talking about the opposite end. We can use many different phrases here. We can say, on the one hand, you've got this, but then opposite to that or opposing that, on the other hand, we have this. So for example, you might say, on one hand, I really like hot weather. But my opposing view is, on the other hand, it does make all my food go off really quickly and it kills my plants. But on the other hand, I hate the hot weather. So you're introducing opposing sides. So you can also say, I really love the hot weather. But on the flip side, turn it over, I hate the hot weather.
To having a bit of luxury now and again.
Hot tubs are the rage at the moment, aren't they? I think.
Here, I cut a phrase in half. I said, hot tubs are the rage at the moment. What I should have said is, they are all the rage at the moment. So if something is all the rage, then it means that it's very popular right now. It's what everyone's talking about, everyone's excited about right now.
Even in centre parks, you can just get your normal lodge or a luxury lodge with a hot tub. It's like you have to have a hot tub to make your holiday super. I had a holiday in Centre Parks for my 40th birthday and decided to spend that extra cash to get a hot tub. But for the whole week that I was there for my 40th birthday, it was really bad weather. Oh, no. So I remember being like, come on everyone, in the evening once the kids were asleep, to my mum, my dad, my partner Nick, like, come on, get your swimming costumes on, we're going outside in the hot tub. And they're like,
in case you're not familiar, hot tub refers to that tub of water that you sit in to relax. So it's not a bath. You would normally have this in a social area like a garden, or sometimes in hotels. Places that you might go to celebrate may have a hot tub. So you'd usually wear a swimming costume in the hot tub, and it's normally got bubbles and the water is warm, and you go in there with your friends or your family to talk and relax and have a nice time, like a jacuzzi.
Anna, it's really stormy and cold. Like, yes, but I paid for it. We're going to enjoy it.
And it's hot when you get in.
Yeah.
It's just cold when you get out.
It was lovely. It was lovely, but it was quite unusual.
So we've got a hot tub in Santorini, really nice big shaped hot tub. But I'm assuming that if it's so hot, you can also have it cold.
Yeah, to
so
refresh
that
you.
You wouldn't want to be getting in a hot tub
sweating
in the middle of the summer in Santorini. So
I think they're more in those hot places. I think they're more for like the evening, aren't they? For just in the evening once the sun's
watching
gone
the
down.
sunset.
Yeah, that'd be nice. And so Neil is really, he's really outdoorsy, isn't he? We said that he likes going out hiking and stuff like that. Have you accompanied him on these kind of really adventurous like hikes and trips? Because he does a lot of weekends away doing like camping and things.
Yeah, so he kind of knows my limits. So he wouldn't take me to probably Snowdon or somewhere like that. He takes my younger daughter.
Right.
She can keep up with him.
Here, Nikki says she can keep up with him. To keep up with someone in this context means to stay with them, walking or cycling or whatever it is, doing that activity at their pace. So they are not moving out ahead of you. You are staying with them, going at their pace. If you're walking down the street with someone and they are falling behind, you might turn around and say, keep up, come on. Or they might say, no, slow down.
I can't do a few flights of stairs.
She also said, I can't do a few flights of stairs. So a flight of stairs refers to a set of stairs. In the average house that has an upstairs and a downstairs, there will be a flight of stairs. If you're in a building that has many floors, there will be several flights of stairs.
So, really? Without, needing to break and have a pause to get my breath back. But I did climb, what was it? Sir Arthur's Mount, or Sir Arthur's Chair in Scotland.
Yeah.
So that was like a mini mountain.
Right.
Some people call it a hill. But I needed hiking sticks to get up.
Walking sticks.
Yeah. And I did find that easier, actually. And also coming down, they're very useful. And I think if I had those more on walking holiday or hikes, it would be easier.
Yeah, I use those. Nick and I use those when we're walking, because especially if it's like not steady underfoot, if it's a little bit off-road.
Okay, off-road refers to anything that's not on the usual track. So if you're walking in the countryside, you might be walking down a country lane. But if you go off the lane, just in the open fields where there's no set place to walk, then you are off-road. This is more often used to talk about driving. If you're driving off-road or cycling off-road, then you're not going on the usual track. You're going kind of free wherever you want to go. If you're skiing, this is called off-piste.
Yeah.
And there's like loose stones and gravel and things, then having sticks can really just help you to keep your balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially me, I get quite dizzy. So is Neil, has he got quite a lot of patience when he's out walking with you on the occasions that he is? Does he kind of take his time, or is he always kind of saying, come on, keep up, like cracking the whip?
To crack the whip. To crack the whip means to flex your authority, to tell someone, come on, work harder. So it's to use your power or your powers of persuasion to make someone work harder. So I'm your teacher. If you are in my class and you're not doing any work, you're just daydreaming, I might come over and say, hey, work harder or you'll be in detention. That's me cracking the whip. I wouldn't do that, obviously, but that would be cracking the whip.
No, I think he is quite patient because he likes to look around and absorb what's around him as well. Yeah. And he loves looking at the trees or foraging.
To forage is where you go out into the wild and you find food that is wild, like berries off the trees. You might find mushrooms growing in the woodlands. To find food that is growing naturally in the wild. It's not the same as growing food purposefully in your allotment or in your garden. If you grow your own carrots and pull them out, that's not foraging. Foraging is going searching for it where nature put it.
Yeah.
When you forage for different things.
Yeah.
He recently went on a bushcraft kind of therapy course, and he learned a lot about the different foods that you could use, like nettles.
A nettle is this lovely stinging plant that stings your skin if you brush past it.
Yeah.
That you could use to make a healing, or you can make soap with nettles.
Right, okay.
You can make a healing ointment with, I think it's nettles as well, which you wouldn't think because they sting you, but you can actually eat them and they don't sting in your mouth. Nettle tea and different soups if you're out in the wild. He would love to do sustainable living and
like living off grid,
like being Bear Grylls kind of thing. And yeah, he would.
To live off grid is to be off the internet and uncontactable, untraceable in the modern world. Some extreme cases to live off grid is to be completely off electricity or anything that's provided by the wider community. So if you are living in a remote place where you have a well for your own water, or a river or stream where you get your own water, you have a fire that you collect wood, so you don't have any central heating, you have no electricity, you don't have internet or a telephone line, you are off grid. Bear Grylls is a popular character. He's a real person, but he's well known for being kind of like an outdoorsy wild man. He can survive in all sorts of different environments. He goes and lives off grid and has all these adventures. And so he's quite famous in popular culture right now. Bear Grylls is known as the adventure-y outdoors survival guy.
He really would.
Amazing. When we went on our Argentina holiday, we went up to, what was the name? There's a really famous glacier, and I'm just terrible for not being able to remember the name of it. But there's a really famous glacier. Oh no, that wasn't the one. Okay, cut. Start again. When we went to Argentina, there was a day when we went to do a full day hike, and at the end of, I think it was like a 5-hour walk there, and at the end of it there's this big bowl and a glacier, and it was beautiful. It was a hard hike. We got there and we took our little Bunsen burner.
A Bunsen burner. This is something that reminds me of science class back in school and college. A Bunsen burner is a little device with a flame. It's got a little gas pipe that connects to a gas canister or the gas mains, and it's a little single flame, and you can heat things on top of it. So a little Bunsen burner.
And our plan was to get there to get a chunk of ice and boil it down to make a cup of tea with glacial water, which we did, and then that was it. That was our goal. Just get there, have glacial tea, and then walk back. It was beautiful.
How was that tasting?
It's just lovely. I mean, it's
normal.
really, it's really probably very old.
Yeah.
Probably very old water.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, everything up there in the mountains tends to be a lot fresher than, especially in London, what you get out the pipes here. I dread to think. When we first moved into this house that we're in, we had a lead pipe.
Here I talked about a lead pipe, the pipe being the tube that brings our water into the house. If there's a pipe burst somewhere, then the water board have to come out and fix the pipe. A lead pipe, lead is the material. So it's a material that carried water from one place to another.
I don't know if you were aware of that. We had a lead pipe which provided our water, and these days you're not supposed to have lead piping for your water because the lead seeps into the water and it can give you lead poisoning.
To seep into something is like to move and spread. So something seeps into the water, then it absorbs almost into the water, it gets out and spreads.
And so when we had someone come round to check our plumbing,
plumbing is the overall term that refers to anything to do with water. So your taps, your pipes, your boiler, anything that provides water in your house or deals with water in your home is plumbing.
They said, you realise you've got a lead pipe in the house for your water, you need to get that changed. So we did. Yeah. So I'm sure glacial ice provided much cleaner water than we get out of the taps.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Anyway, coming back to holidays, last question. What is the best holiday experience you've ever had? Can you pinpoint it?
To pinpoint is to find an exact thing. So if I have a general pain in my body, but I don't know what's causing it, I'd say I can't pinpoint what the problem is, but there's something wrong. I've got some sort of weird sensation in my back. I'm very uncomfortable, but I can't pinpoint exactly where the pain is.
We had so many that it's hard to pick one.
Yeah, I mean, a holiday probably to remember for us was Disney World in Florida.
Oh, you went to Disney World?
Yeah, we did 2 weeks, and that was when my oldest daughter, who's nearly 22, she turned 9 while we were out there, and I had a birthday out there because we're 4 days between.
Here, Nikki says we're 4 days between. What she actually meant was there are 4 days between our birthdays.
Right.
And we did a week. Well, I can't remember what we did. We did Universal and the Magic Kingdom and Epcot, and we stayed in a hotel, not really a hotel, like apartments that had a communal pool.
Right.
Communal means shared by a wider group of people. So if you are staying in a hotel, but it's only a 1-star hotel and you don't have an ensuite, so you don't have a bathroom as part of your room, you have to use a communal bathroom. So everyone in the hotel uses this one bathroom.
A bit out of the park district. And then we spent a couple of days in Clearwater as well, near the beach and stuff. So that was lovely.
So that was just the 4 of you.
That was the 4 of us.
Your 2 daughters and
it was exhausting.
Yes,
it is exhausting.
Your youngest daughter would have been
she
how old?
would have been nearly 5.
Right.
So
really magical
was,
for her.
Yeah, and it was lovely because there's 4 years between them.
Now, this is a very typical thing for natives to do. Nikki said, there's 4 years between them. There's. That contraction would be, there is 4 years between them, rather than there are 4 years between them. Because saying there are, contracting there are is much harder. We don't really do it. We could say there are 4 years between them, but that takes longer. So we tend to contract and change there are to there is or theirs. So if you hear that or see that written in a transcription, never write it. But if you see it written in a transcription, it's because when we speak, to make it easier, we just change there are. It's easier to say there's 4 years between them.
And the older one is old enough to remember it, and old enough to still be young enough to still be mesmerised by the princesses, and she got glammed up in the bibbidi boppity boot.
To get glammed up means to become more glamorous. So to make yourself look nice and look glamorous for an occasion. So we often get glammed up if we're going on a night out or for a nice meal or event like a wedding.
Boutique, and we went swimming with dolphins for her birthday.
Was that in one of the parks?
That was in Discovery Cove,
Right.
which is like a special dolphin place where you can swim with the stingrays and the sharks.
Wow.
So that was beautiful.
Amazing.
So that was lovely. It was exhausting having 2 young children, but it was lovely to experience the magic through them.
Yeah.
And to I wouldn't like to do it now nowadays. I can't remember any of the rides and the things like that, but I just remembered like the parades, the fireworks, and the food was amazing.
Oh, really? That's good. Because often I find with theme parks, I feel like they fall down on the food.
Now, I use the phrase of a fall down on. To fall down on something is to perform badly in an area. So if I say you were doing really well, but then you fell down on the grammar section of the test, then that would be the area where you stopped performing well, where you started performing badly.
Especially the ones that we go to around here. Not that we're surrounded by theme parks, but we are in the south, so there's quite a few theme parks close by, and it always tends to be that kind of very fast food kind of food that's kind of mass produced, not very healthy, not very tasty kind of stuff.
Well, I think we ate out in a few restaurants, and also we were catering for ourselves in the evening, so we didn't eat so much of park food. We would make picnics and take our own packed lunches and then come back and eat, or eat out.
Packed lunches is a really common term, especially if you've got school-aged children. A packed lunch, I'm sure you can guess, is a lunch that you pack up and take with you. So if you are going from home to school or from home to work or out on a day trip, you might decide to take a packed lunch. You make some sandwiches, you wrap them up, you put them in a box, and you take your packed lunch box.
Outside of the park.
Yeah.
For that reason, probably. But I remember the portions being huge. And I remember Lauren being given a pizza and then a cup of Parmesan cheese.
Oh, wow.
And there's a photo actually of her, but she said, do I have to eat all this cheese? Because she thought that was for her and that was part of the meal. But I said, no, that's just to shake on. But the portions were huge. Yeah. But it was just lovely experience.
Yeah, good.
But my favourite holiday aside of that would probably be the tour in Scotland, right, which I never thought I would have enjoyed. Touring Scotland in a camper van, but we were really lucky to have some beautiful weather.
Yeah.
And it was just outside of the season with the midges all coming into.
Yeah. Midges refer to these tiny little flies like gnats, and they bite, and there's loads of them, and they come out in the warm summery weather, especially where there's water. So if there's a lake or a stream, you'll often find swarms of midges and gnats, and they get in your face and then they bite you.
So it was really lovely, and it was out of the school holidays, so it wasn't so busy.
Now, Nikki talks about being out of the school holidays. So we talk about being in the school holidays and out of the school holidays. These are times of the year. If you're booking a holiday in the school holidays, we're talking about when the schools are broken up, when the schools are not happening. When the kids are off school, that's in the school holidays. If you don't have kids, then you will try to book your holidays out of the school holidays. So you don't want to be booking during the time when the kids are off, because everywhere will be twice as expensive and really busy.
Beautiful beaches, and every turn that we made or every hill that we went over, there was a different view. So sometimes it felt like we were in the Rockies.
Yeah.
Sometimes it felt like we were just in film sets.
Here, Nikki referred to the amazing views as being similar to that of a film set. A film set would refer to something that looks beautiful as it would do in a film. So they have these amazing sets, but it's just a film set. But in real life, sometimes views can be so beautiful it looks perfect, like it was made for a film, like a film set.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
And you never knew where you were going to sleep the next night,
so
because you're moving on. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
It was really good to see a lot of it and different experiences.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time touring Scotland as an actress when I first left college, maybe 2-3 years, and we had the same experience that even though it was the winter time, there'd be days when I think sunny winter days are beautiful anyway. It's crisp and the colours are different.
Interesting. I referred to the views that I saw as being crisp, like the winter days being crisp. When I talk about the day being crisp, I'm referring both to the weather being mild, so it's not hot and oppressive, and it's not too cold and windy. It's just a little bit crunchy in the air. It's a little bit cold in the air, but not too cold. Also, if it's a bright, cold day, if the sun is out, everything is a bit crisp. So literally the leaves will be dry and laying on the ground. When you walk on them, they'll be crispy and crunchy. But also the colors are vibrant. So everything has a very hard edge. You can see everything very clearly because the sun is so clearly showing all the edges. It's crisp, well defined.
But in Scotland, it's such a beautiful landscape. They've got so much to offer, quite extreme landscapes at times. But it's also largely untouched. The population is not very large, and so there's lots of countryside that's just as is.
Yeah.
And the colours up there in the autumn and the winter are stunning, and we would be trying to find these remote little primary schools to go and do our pantomimes.
A pantomime. A pantomime is a well-known British tradition. This is a theatre show that happens around the winter, around the Christmas holidays, usually, sometimes after Christmas as well, into January. And a pantomime has origins in commedia dell'arte. It's a very big style of audience interaction and comedy and songs. It's a whole lesson all on its own. So it's a style of theatre show.
too, and be just finding these stunning roads that we were driving along and amazing scenery, and just thinking, wow, you know, this is really unexpected, because you think Scotland in winter, you just think lots of rain, just endless torrents of rain.
Yeah.
But not always the case. Well, anyway, thank you for sharing all your thoughts and experiences with the holidays. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's taken me back.
Here, Nikki said, it's taken me back. If something takes you back, then it reminds you of something in the past. Oh, this song takes me back. This song reminds me of a time in the past.
To some lovely memories. Yeah, it's been nice.
Were you a teacher's pet back at school?
For some of them, no. No. What about you?
Yes, in English I was definitely the teacher's pet, and in like PE I was the golden girl, because I did all the clubs and took part in every extracurricular activity that was going. I was generally a good girl, not a naughty girl. It's a funny word, isn't it, naughty, because like we use it to mean cheeky a lot.
For children, I think naughty just means like badly behaved. I think adults being naughty is different to being a criminal.
Yes.
Whereas,
because if you break the rules at school, you're a naughty boy or you're a naughty girl. But if you're a grown up and you call someone a naughty girl, then it's got almost like it's like hanky panky, isn't it? It's like
sexual connotations.
So as a child, I wasn't a naughty girl, but I did hang around
as an adult.
I did hang around with some of the naughty kids. There was one time when I started a new school and I was trying to hang out with a cool crowd, and they were all behind the bike shed having a sneaky ciggy. But I was being the lookout for them. I was trying to help them out because I wanted to get in with them. And so I was looking out for them, and then one of the girls asked me to hold one of their cigarettes for a moment. And the moment I took the cigarette in hand was the moment like the head of department or someone quite senior in the teaching staff walked around the corner and literally caught me red-handed, even though it wasn't my cigarette. And of course I protested. I was like, it's not mine. But I had it in my hand.
Do you think your friends saw the teacher coming?
Maybe they were just like setting me up for a fall. But even in those circumstances, like I wasn't the kind of person who would dob other people in. I was a good girl, but I kept my mouth shut when I needed to.
I used to hate the word dobbing.
Did you?
Yeah, as a kid. It was like, I always thought it was something that people got off neighbours.
Right.
Or Home and Away, saying, are you going to be dobbing me in?
Well, what word would you use? Like to rat someone out, or?
I think, as when you were younger, you just say like, telling the teacher or something, but then
I'm telling.
Yeah,
I'm telling on you.
Yeah, it'd be like, you telling or whatever. And then I think when you're a bit older, like, you're going to grass me up.
Oh, grass up. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we used that one a lot when I was a kid. Don't grass me up. I was a goody two-shoes, actually. I don't remember ever getting a detention or...
You really were a goody two-shoes.
Yeah, I really was.
I have no idea how many detentions I got.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so you were a bit of a naughty boy.
Yeah, I got in a few fights and all this kind of stuff. You know, boys trying to find their place in like the hierarchy of the year. And there was 150 kids in my year. So there was a lot of people finding their places and things. And then when you got a bit older, like those sorts of things mostly disappeared. I wasn't very good at doing my homework. I was a bit bored, I think, for the most part.
You just always test the limits.
You know, I didn't mind saying things that maybe were a bit on the edge.
Right.
Get me in a bit of trouble with the teachers and things.
You weren't expelled, were you?
No, I was never expelled. I think you've got to be horrible to be expelled. I was suspended maybe 3 times.
You were suspended 3 times?
I think so, yeah.
What on earth did you do to get suspended for a whole week?
Well,
were you a teacher's pet back at school?
Teacher's pet describes the student who is the teacher's favourite student. So they might get special treatment, or the teacher may just behave in a more kind and friendly way towards that student. The teacher's pet.
In like PE, I was the golden girl.
Here I mentioned being the golden girl in PE PE stands for physical education. It's the lessons that involve sports and being physical that we do at school. And being a golden girl is like being a very well-behaved and well-liked girl, a golden girl. But if you're a grown-up and you call someone a naughty girl, then it's got almost like it's like hanky-panky. Hanky-panky. This kind of fun, slightly naughty phrase refers to behaving in a very intimate and sexual way with somebody else. The act of hanky-panky could literally replace the word sex. So, did you have hanky-panky last night? Sex, basically. A bit of hanky-panky. But hanky-panky can also refer to just the acts that are sexual that aren't necessarily sex. So a bit of tickling and rolling around. Hanky-panky. And they were all behind the bike shed having a sneaky ciggy. But I was being the lookout for them. I was trying to help them out because I wanted to get in with them. Here I used the phrase ciggy, meaning cigarette. So you might hear different like slang terms like cig, fag, ciggy, cigarette. I use the word ciggy just off the cuff. I also said lookout. To be a lookout is to be the person who stands guard while something is happening, watching to make sure that no one is coming or that no one can see. And if someone is coming, the lookout is supposed to tell whoever is doing the deed, someone's coming, quick. Now, normally there'd be a lookout if a gang were committing a crime like robbing a bank. There'd be someone on lookout at the front. Or I always think of meerkats when I think of a lookout, because meerkats will spend their time doing what they're doing, but one meerkat will have the job of being the lookout. And he stands up tall and he looks to the sky to look for predators. And if there's a predator, he will warn the others and they'll all quickly scurry away into safety. I also said I wanted to get in with the group, to get in with them. To get in with a group of people is to become one of them, so be liked by a group of friends so that they want you to be in their group. They like talking to you, they invite you to do the things that they're doing, to get in with them. And literally caught me red-handed, even though it wasn't my cigarette. I was caught red-handed. To be caught red-handed is an idiom that describes being caught or found in the act of doing something you shouldn't be doing. So if I'm in my kitchen, no one's around, and there's a big slice of cake in the fridge that I'm not supposed to eat because it belongs to someone else, or maybe I'm on a diet, and then I think no one's looking, and I've got chocolate all over my face, and someone walks in as I'm just licking my fingers, but I still have chocolate on my face, then I've just been caught red-handed, caught in the act. Maybe they were just like setting me up for a fall. To set someone up for a fall is to prepare someone to then allow them to fail. Just like you would set up dominoes, and as soon as you finish setting up your dominoes, you knock them down and they all fall down. In some circumstances, people will set other people up for a fall. So they'll put them in a situation where they know they will fail. It's not pleasant, but it happens. But even in those circumstances, like I wasn't the kind of person who would dob other people in. To dob someone in is possibly clear now because of the context, but to dob someone in is to tell someone that that person was doing something wrong. So if we are friends at school and you break the rules and I go and tell the teacher that you've broken the rules, I am dobbing you in. To dob in.
I always thought it was something that people got off Neighbours,
right,
or Home and Away.
Nick mentioned Neighbours or Home and Away. Now these are two very famous soap operas Maybe not as famous now with the younger generations, but certainly when I was growing up in the 90s, Neighbours and Home and Away were very popular. Everyone of my age will know what I'm referring to if I say Neighbours or Home and Away. These are soap operas that were just commonplace in the British household when I was growing up. Neighbours, everybody needs good neighbours. Closer each day, home and away.
You're going to grass me up.
Oh, grass up. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we used that one a lot when I was a kid. On the subject of dobbing someone in, we also have other phrases that were very common. One particular one is grass up. Now, if you grass someone up, it's the same as dobbing them in. You're telling tales on them. You're telling someone, they did this, they did something wrong, in order to get them into trouble. That's the reason that you would grass someone up. If you committed a crime and I went to the police, then I'm essentially a grass. I am a grass. I've just grassed you up.
You really were a goody two-shoes.
Yeah, I really was. To be a goody two-shoes. To be a goody two-shoes. It's often actually used as a phrase that has a negative connotation. If someone's a goody two-shoes, it means that they're disliked a little bit because they are too good. They really play to the rules and just always try to be the golden girl or the golden boy, and they don't have any problems with grassing someone up, dobbing them in so that they can win brownie points, so they can be favoured by authority. So sometimes people don't like a goody two-shoes. Also, a goody two-shoes is someone who maybe never lets their hair down, they never take risks, and that can be associated with not being fun. So it's good to follow the rules and do as you're told, but being a goody two-shoes maybe is a step too far.
Yeah, I got in a few fights and all this kind of stuff. You know, boys trying to find their place in like the hierarchy of the year.
Here I use the word hierarchy. Hierarchy. A hierarchy is a system that orders people in terms of status and authority. So in a school, at the top of the hierarchy will be the headmaster or the headmistress. Below them will be the heads of departments. So the head of maths, the head of English, the head of languages, the head of PE, physical education. And then below that, you'll have all the other teaching staff. And below that, you might have the prefects, which are the model students, the goody two-shoes students who are happy to take on extra responsibilities. And then you have the students. That's the hierarchy, the system of status and authority.
I was a bit bored, I think, for the most part.
You just always test the limits.
You may have missed it, but I said, so you always test the limits. If someone tests the limits, it means that they see how much they can do before getting into trouble. So if you say to me, Anna, bedtime is 9 o'clock on the dot, and that's the rule, stick to it. But then one night I stay up till 2 minutes past 9 and I don't get into trouble. So the next night I stay up till 4 minutes past 9. Nobody says anything. So the next night I really push the boat out and I stay up till 10 past 9. Then I get into trouble. Anna, I told you bedtime is at 9 o'clock on the dot. You're really pushing the limits here. Don't test me. So to test the limits is to see how far you can go before things change.
You weren't expelled, were you?
No, I was never expelled.
The word expelled, not a good word. This means that you are permanently removed from a school or educational setting because of bad behaviour. So if you've done something very serious, then you are asked to leave the school and you may never come back.
I was suspended maybe 3 times.
You were suspended 3
I
times.
think so, yeah.
To be suspended means to be asked to leave for a short period, and this is a punishment for doing something quite bad, but not so bad that you are expelled. It might be that you are only allowed to be suspended 2 or 3 times, and if you are continuously breaking those rules, then eventually you'll be expelled. Suspension is for a short period, you're asked to leave school. Expulsion, to be expelled is a permanent ban. What on earth did you do to get suspended for a whole week? And here I said, what on earth did you do? What on earth? To add on earth into a question, like who on earth? What on earth? Where on earth? Why on earth? If you slide in on earth after those W questions, then you're really exaggerating the fact that you're surprised or shocked by what you are trying to understand. If you are doing something that I think is crazy, I'd say, what on earth are you doing? Or if you walk into my house and I don't know who you are, I'd look at you and say, who on earth are you? And what on earth are you doing in my house? So it adds an additional level of shock or surprise to your question. I broke a bone. In fact, I've broken lots of bones, but do you remember? This is a test now because I've told you about this before, but do you remember my biggest break?
I do. I think I could pass the test. I believe you had a spiral fracture of your femur.
Wow. Okay. I'm surprised because normally you don't listen to anything I tell you. But yeah, well done. I spiral fractured my femur. Do you remember which leg it was?
No.
It was my
I
left
could have
leg.
gone 50-50 on that,
Yeah,
couldn't I?
you could have just tried.
Went with outright failure from...
You just gave up. Yeah, so I must have been like 10 or 11 years old. I was still at primary school, so hadn't moved on to high school. I was giving someone a piggyback in the playground and I was the horse and I said, how fast do you want to go? And she said, as fast as you can go. So I was like, nay! And I think it was autumn because we had like muddy, do you remember like playgrounds, they'd always have these like sunken bits where maybe they hadn't done the foundations properly.
Right, yeah.
Like sunken concrete.
Poor workmanship.
And so, yeah, and then they'd always get full of mud and then when it rained, they'd just like be little muddy puddles and then this muddy puddle was full of leaves, but it started to dry slightly. So I'm running around as fast as I can with this big girl on my back and my foot caught some leaves and I slipped and went like into full scissor splits. Kapow. And because of the weight of this girl on my back, I was quite flexible, but she kind of made me go straight down all the way, full splits.
Oh, really? Could you do full splits at that point? Because that's a lot.
Yeah.
For somebody that can't normally do it.
So I could if I was warmed up, but at a push, completely at a push. But that was too much of a push. It was too quick with weight. And so, yeah, I got this really complex fracture all the way down my femur. I remember going down and then I blacked out. And then I remember coming to and everyone stood around me and I pulled my leg in front of me and tried to get up. And then my leg felt like it was just full of concrete. It was like a dead weight, just hanging off my body. And the teacher was completely unsympathetic and just came up and was like, oh, stop being a hypochondriac.
Pull yourself together.
Pull yourself together. She dragged me up off the floor and I tried to put weight on it. And again, it felt like a dead weight and I just collapsed. And I started like, crying and whinging and just saying, please just leave me here. Just leave me. I was being very melodramatic. I'll wait until home time. And it was raining. And she's like, don't be so ridiculous. You've got to come in. It's raining. And so my friend left me. The other teacher went to get another teacher and they had my arms over their shoulders and dragged me in.
Doing wonders for your injury, I'm sure.
It could have made it, it could have splintered the bone, so we were very lucky. Yeah, that was quite a significant break and saw me in traction in the hospital for months.
What does that mean?
In traction is when you're, when you've got like the leg wrapped up and then it's held up, it's like suspended.
Like those cartoons where people get run over by trucks.
Yeah, and they're just there in the beds like puppets.
Neck brace.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was stuck in bed and I couldn't roll over because my leg was in traction. I got really bad bed sores. Oh, it was really uncomfortable.
How old were you?
Like 11 years old.
God.
I was going insane.
Yeah.
But then when I got into a wheelchair, amazing, and on crutches, I was like Speedy Gonzales on. You couldn't stop me. So it really stands out as one of my most significant
My most significant accidents. I mean, I've had many. I broke my toe while I was with you, didn't I?
Yeah, that was weird. We had 2 small children at the time. We had nappy bin bags, and you put the nappies in this bin and just keep on stuffing them in until it's completely full, and then you tie it off and you pull it out, and it's big, like a big snake of pooey nappies.
Yeah, yuck.
And so you then said, oh, I'll take it downstairs, and I said, oh, I'm sure I probably very gentlemanly offered you some help. No. And I said, well, be careful. And you're like, oh, I'll trip over this. And I'm like, well, carry it properly. And next thing I hear, dunk, dunk, dunk. My toe.
Well, I knew instantly because when I fell, my legs went out to the side, and with our little banisters going down, that's what they're called, isn't it? The banisters going down the side, the rail.
The banister is the bit on the top. It's the
rails.
The rails, yeah, probably in the banister.
The foot closest to the banister and the rails had caught, like 2 or 3 toes had caught. And obviously I'd kept going, but my toes were caught. And I heard the crack. I heard it and I felt it. And then when I looked at my foot as I came to a stop, I looked at it and my toe was just pointing out at a right angle to my foot. I was like, yeah, that's definitely broken. And it was so painful. I always think that in those situations when someone's dislocated something or broken something to a point where it's really sitting on the wrong angle, that you would just, you're in pain anyway, you just grab it and snap it back into place. But I couldn't let anyone come anywhere near me. I was like, do not touch it. This is horrendous. Even when I got to the hospital, I was like, don't touch my toe.
I think you have to do that within the first 5 seconds.
Before the swelling sets in.
It's like if you cut your hand and you've got skin hanging off,
yeah.
The first thing I do is just tear it off.
Oh.
Because if you leave it on, it's like perpetual, longer term, just pain and discomfort. It's better to just get it off.
Right, let's now deep dive into some of that vocabulary. So let's go through again, and I will stop when there's something to explain. Let's go. I broke a bone. In fact, I've broken lots of bones, but do you remember? This is a test now, because I've told you about this before, but do you remember my biggest break?
I do. I think I could pass the test. I believe you had a spiral fracture of your femur.
Wow. Okay. I'm surprised because normally you don't listen to anything I tell you. But yeah, well done. I spiral fractured my femur. Do you remember which leg it was?
No.
Fracture. I talk about fracturing my femur. The femur is the biggest thigh bone, and I fractured it. A fracture is like a crack through a structure, but the structure remains in place. So here we're talking about bones. I cracked the bone, but the bone didn't change shape. Everything held together. Just like if you knock an eggshell, the eggshell might fracture. You might see a crack appear in the eggshell, but the eggshell may still hold together. It doesn't necessarily come apart. They would need a little more pressure for that. So I was lucky. I fractured my femur, but it stayed in place. It was my left leg.
I could have gone 50-50 on that, couldn't I?
You could have just tried.
Went with outright failure from...
You just gave up. Here, Nick said, I could have gone 50-50 on that. What he meant was there was a 50% chance that he would have been right no matter what he had guessed, left or right. It was one of them. So he was saying 50-50, I could have been right. So I should have just tried. I should have just guessed left or right. And I might have been correct. Yeah, so I must have been like 10 or 11 years old. I was still at primary school, so hadn't moved on to high school. I was giving someone a piggyback in the playground. Piggyback. A piggyback is the act of having someone jump up on your back, and they normally put their legs around your waist and they put their arms around your shoulders or around your neck. And you hold them and you walk them. So that's a piggyback, to give someone a piggyback. And I was the horse, and I said, how fast do you want to go? And she said, as fast as you can go. So I was like, nay. And I think it was autumn, because we had like muddy, do you remember like playgrounds, they'd always have these like sunken bits where maybe they hadn't done the foundations properly.
Right, yeah.
Like sunken concrete.
Poor workmanship.
And so, yeah, and then they'd always get full of mud, and then when it rained, they'd just like be little muddy puddles, and then... Right. Here, Nick said, poor workmanship. Poor workmanship is something that's being crafted in a bad way. So if I haven't done a good job at making whatever it is I'm making, then you can say that's poor workmanship. That shows poor workmanship. Like if I'm plastering a wall and then painting it, and I don't allow the plaster to dry properly before throwing the paint on it, it's going to look bad. It's not going to be a good job. And you say, the paint's a bit shoddy. The plaster all looks a little bit rushed. That's poor workmanship. So when time and effort have not been put into creating something, that results in poor workmanship.
This muddy puddle was full of leaves, but it started to dry slightly. So I'm running around as fast as I can with this big girl on my back, and my foot caught some leaves, and I slipped and went like into full scissor splits. Kapow.
Scissor splits. Now, the splits is when you separate your legs out and they go in opposite directions, like flat against the floor. Your legs go fully flat against the floor in opposite directions. There are two types of splits that you can do. Scissor splits is where one leg goes forwards and one leg goes backwards, just like a pair of scissors. But the other splits are called box splits. That's where your legs both go out to the sides. So one out on the left and one out on the right. I did the scissor splits.
And because of the weight of this girl on my back, I was quite flexible, but she kind of made me go straight down all the way.
To be flexible just means that you can bend very well. So if you can stand up straight with your knees locked and bend down to touch the floor with the palms of your hands, then you are probably quite flexible.
Full splits.
Oh, really? Could you do full splits at that point? Because that's a lot.
Yeah.
For somebody that can't normally do it.
So I could if I was warmed up.
I mentioned being warmed up. We warm up before working out or before performing. So we will often warm up our voice or warm up our bodies. It's just the act of doing some movement to get the blood flowing and to get everything ready to perform or to work out.
Right. But at a push. Completely at a push, but that was too much of a push. It was too quick.
Here I said at a push. This is a phrase that means if I really have to, or at the very extremes of my ability. So I can lift 50 pounds. At a push, if you really pushed me to my limits, if I really was trying very, very hard, I could lift 52 pounds. So I might be able to go that extra little bit further if I have to, or if I'm being strongly encouraged to, or I'm really trying to motivate myself to go beyond my own limits.
With weight. And so, yeah, I got this really complex fracture all the way down my femur. I remember going down and then I blacked out.
Here I use the phrasal verb black out. I said I blacked out. So if you black out, it means that you faint or become unconscious. Now, this is not the same as going to sleep. Although if you're extremely tired or maybe you've had a few drinks, then you might say, oh, I completely blacked out last night. But it is quite extreme. So this is usually reserved for when you have an accident, if you're hit in the head or something shocks you so much that you suddenly fall unconscious. This is blacking out, to black out.
And then I remember coming to and everyone stood around me.
After that, I said when I came to come to in this context is when you wake up after blacking out or after fainting. So you're unconscious for a little while and you finally open your eyes and you're back in the room. You have come to.
And I pulled my leg in front of me and tried to get up. And then my leg felt like it was just full of concrete. It was like a dead weight. Wow. Just hanging off my body.
I describe my leg here as a dead weight. When we talk about dead weights, we just mean a weight or the weight of something that is not moving. So like an inert object. Imagine if you were carrying a huge sack full of potatoes. That's a dead weight. It's just a weight that doesn't help you at all, which is different to picking up a child of the same weight. They move and they're more dynamic. And so they're slightly easier to lift because they kind of help you by gripping on and adjusting their body and being as light as a feather in their mind. But if something is a dead weight, then it doesn't help you at all. And in this case, my leg was like cut off. My brain had said, don't move this leg. So it's like my brain had stopped my muscles from responding and my leg was just hanging off my body and it was really heavy. So my leg was a dead weight.
And the teacher was completely unsympathetic and just came up and was like, oh, stop being a hypochondriac.
Pull yourself together.
Pull yourself together. She dragged me up off the floor and I tried to put weight on it. And again, it felt like a dead weight and I just collapsed.
I describe myself here as a hypochondriac. A hypochondriac is somebody who is extremely worried about their health. And they're usually the kinds of people who go, oh no, look, I've got a cut on my finger. Do you think I need to see a doctor? It might be infected. I might get septicemia. I might die. So a hypochondriac is someone who is excessively concerned and worried about their own health. And Nick goes on to say, pull yourself together. This is a command that you would give someone to say, stop panicking or stop being emotional. You need to be calm and you need to think straight and you need to stop reacting in such an emotional way. So if I am talking to my friend and she starts getting really upset and emotional and behaving in an erratic way, I might have to say to her, look, pull yourself together. It's not that bad. They don't have tea and coffee. That's okay. You don't need to get emotional. Pull yourself together. It's not the kind of thing that you should use loosely because it can upset people if it's a sensitive moment, if they're genuinely upset about something that deserves to be upset about. Telling them to pull themselves together can seem like you don't care. I would only use that if you think someone is being melodramatic. I'll explain that in a minute. Or over the top, not really thinking logically. They're just letting the emotions get the better of them.
And I started crying and whinging and just saying, please just leave me here. Just leave me. I was being very melodramatic.
Okay, here I say whinging and I use the word melodramatic. To whinge is to complain or cry in often a consistent and annoying, irritating way. Oh, Mom, I'm hungry. Mom, my tummy hurts. I'm really hungry. I'm really hungry. That's whinging. Stop whinging. I was whinging about the fact that my leg hurt and I didn't want to go inside, which was, valid. But to be melodramatic is to be overly dramatic, to be over the top in your reaction. Oh, my leg is falling off. Leave me here. Don't touch me. That's a little bit melodramatic, okay? So I was being over the top in my reaction and I was whinging.
I'll wait until home time, and it was raining. And she's like, don't be so ridiculous. You've got to come in, it's raining. And so my friend left me. The other teacher went to get another teacher and they had my arms over their shoulders and dragged me in.
Doing wonders for your injury, I'm sure.
It could have made it it could have splintered the bone, so we were very lucky.
Here, Nick said that would do wonders for your leg. So to do wonders for, this is used in a sarcastic way here, but you can use it in a way that's not sarcastic. So to do wonders for something means that it almost works miracles on the thing. It does a fantastic job. So for example, a good diet and a morning walk can do wonders for your health. Or a daily walk will do wonders for your mood. A weekly date night will do wonders for your relationship. So to do wonders for just means it will be very beneficial. It will be very good for that thing. But we do like a bit of sarcasm here in the UK, and that's part of our humor. We like to say things that just are the complete opposite. So dragging my whole body with my broken leg, my spiral fracture, all the way into the school up to the head office was not beneficial for my leg. It was the worst thing to do, and it could have resulted in much worse damage and long-term issues. But Nick used it sarcastically. He said, oh, they dragged you in with a spiral fracture in your femur. That would have done wonders for your leg. He was being sarcastic. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, that was quite a significant break and saw me in traction.
Now here I said that this saw me in traction. Now here, obviously saw is the past tense of see. Here I'm using it to mean the result of this was me in traction. So I might say committing a crime saw me in prison for 20 years. Taking this course saw me achieve my goals and getting a job. Okay, so we can use saw to mean resulted in. This isn't a very common usage, but this was a very off the cuff, unplanned conversation, and it was used in conversation.
In the hospital for months.
What does that mean?
Intraction is when you're, when you've got like the leg wrapped up and then it's held up, it's like suspended.
Like those cartoons of people get run over by trucks.
Here, Nick used a phrasal verb, run over. He said the characters who get run over by trucks. So to get run over is to be hit by a moving vehicle. So it runs you over, or it runs over you, but we say you have been run over. That person was run over. I always say to my children, don't run out into the road. You might get run over. Be careful. You might get hit by a car.
Yeah, and they're just there in the beds like like puppets.
Neck brace.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was stuck in bed and I couldn't roll over because my leg was in traction. I got really bad bed sores. Oh, it was really uncomfortable.
How old were you?
Like 11 years old.
God.
I was going insane.
Yeah.
But then when I got into a wheelchair, amazing, and on crutches, I was like Speedy Gonzales on.
I refer to a character here, Speedy Gonzales. Now, I'm assuming that everyone knows who this character is, but you may not. Speedy Gonzales is a cartoon character from when I was a child back in the 80s who could run really fast. That's why he was called Speedy Gonzales. And so this little mouse is a character that comes up in regular conversation when I'm talking about being fast. I'll say, oh, I'm like Speedy Gonzales, running all over the place. So to run really, really fast. That's a pop culture reference.
You couldn't stop me. So it really stands out as one of my most significant.
I used the phrasal verb here, stands out. If something stands out, then it's a prominent thing. So I'm talking about memories, and I say this memory stands out in my mind. So I'm saying this memory is prominent. I remember this particular incident because it was so monumental. It had such an impact on my life. It was very painful. So I really remember it. This moment stands out for me. This was a standout moment.
My most significant accidents. I mean, I've had many. I broke my toe while I was with you, didn't I?
Yeah, that was weird. We had 2 small children at the time. We had nappy bin bags, and you put the nappies in this bin.
Here, this might be a really obvious one, but because American English is quite dominant internationally, I thought I should point it out. A nappy in American English is a diaper. So this is a nappy. We don't use diaper at all. That's not a word that we use here. We know what it is, but we don't use it in the UK.
And just keep on stuffing them in until it's completely full. And then you tie it off and you pull it out, and it's big, like a big snake of pooey nappies.
Yeah, yuck.
And
tie off. So to tie off means obviously to tie a knot in something, but specifically to fasten something or hold something, usually at its end. So we tied off the bin. So this was a long bin full of nappies that we'd stuff down. When you fill it up, you get the end and you tie it off so that each end has a knot in it. And then we put it in the big bin outside for the bin men to collect.
And so you then said, I'll take it downstairs. And I said, I'm sure I probably very gentlemanly offered you some help.
Here, Nick used the word gentlemanly. In a gentlemanly way, I offered to carry the bag for you. Now, to do something gentlemanly, it means you do it in a way that is in the manner of a gentleman. So you behave like a gentleman would, which would be to be kind and considerate and protective and helpful, particularly towards women. So he was offering to help me because I'm a woman. And he was saying, I'll do that horrible job, that slightly risky, dangerous job, carrying that smelly bag of nappies down the stairs, because I can see you might fall and hurt yourself. I'll do it for you, darling. Obviously, I declined and broke my toe.
No. And I said, well, be careful. And you're like, oh, I'll trip over this. And I'm like, well, carry it properly. And next thing I hear, dunk, dunk, dunk. My toe.
Well, I knew instantly because when I fell, my legs went out to the side, and with our little banisters going down, that's what they're called, isn't it? The banisters going down the side, the rail.
The banister is the bit on the top. It's the
rails.
The rails, yeah, probably in the banister.
The foot closest to the banister and the rails had caught, like 2 or 3 toes had caught. And obviously I'd kept going, but my toes were caught. And I heard the crack. I heard it and I felt it. And then when I looked at my foot as I came to a stop, I looked at it and my toe was just pointing out at a right angle to my foot.
All right, here I mentioned the word right angle. If something is at a right angle, then it's at 90 degrees. That's a right angle. So my toe was sticking out at 90 degrees from where it should have been. It was at a right angle.
I was like, yeah, that's definitely broken. And it was so painful. I always think that in those situations when someone's dislocated something or broken something to a point where it's really sitting on the wrong angle, that you would just, you're in pain anyway, you just grab it and snap it back into place. But I couldn't let anyone come anywhere near me. I was like, do not touch it. This is horrendous. Even when I got to the hospital, I was like, don't touch my toe.
I think you have to do that within the first 5 seconds.
Before the swelling sets in.
It's like if you...
Here I use the phrasal verb set in. So when something sets in, it begins. And we usually use this when talking about health. So talking about swelling or disease or a substance might set in. Rot in your house. If you have a leak, then damp might set in, or dry rot might set in. So it's when something begins and starts to spread. So when you have an injury, it will slowly start to spread until it really balloons up. Everything will become inflamed as those processes begin. So the swelling sets in.
If you cut your hand and you've got skin hanging off, the first thing I do is just tear it off.
Oh.
Because if you leave it on, it's like perpetual, longer term, just pain and discomfort. It's better to just get it off.
We're going to talk about a very British tradition, afternoon tea. And I'm very happy to be joined by my very good friend, Charlie. Hello.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. I'm really, really pleased that you decided to join me today. So, Charlie, how do you feel about afternoon tea?
Well, food in general is probably my favourite topic to talk about. And afternoon tea, I like it very much. I suppose it's one of those things that I don't have. It's a treat for me. And it's something that perhaps me and a family, friends will do on a birthday, or like I say, as a special treat, rather than it being something that I do regularly at home. But I have to say that life has got rather boring for me because I try not to eat too much refined sugar, trying to be healthy. So that does change afternoon tea a little bit for me. But the joy of afternoon tea is that it's not all about the cakes.
Well, that brings me very nicely onto what afternoon tea actually consists of, because some people may never have experienced this tradition. So afternoon tea, as the name suggests, obviously has tea as a main component, but it also consists of sandwiches and scones and pastries or cakes. So let's start with the origins of afternoon tea. It actually started back in the 1840s with the Duchess of Bedford, Anna, I believe her name was. She was hungry between lunch and dinner, and so she asked for some sandwiches and some cakes and pastries to be brought to her, and she enjoyed doing this, so she did it again and again, and eventually Queen Victoria dropped in. She was obviously working in high circles back then, as if she still survives now. Queen Victoria joined her, and this then became a tradition, because once the Queen does something, at least in the past, everyone took note. So sandwiches. Now, the sandwiches of an afternoon tea are quite delicate. As far as I know, you tend to cut off the crusts. And if you're having afternoon tea in a restaurant or a hotel, they actually serve them as little rectangles. Is that your experience?
That's true. Yeah, crusts cut off, and they're meant to be like finger sandwiches. So it's also meant to be very delicate, very dainty, and something that you can hold with one hand and eat in a very ladylike fashion without necessarily spilling the contents down your lap or getting your face or fingers all mucky.
Absolutely, because one thing we haven't mentioned is that afternoon tea really now is a social thing, isn't it? It's about spending time with your friends and family, or maybe even a business event. So you might take your clients out for afternoon tea to discuss business. So you don't want to be there with a mouthful, 2 hands on your sandwich, having a mouthful of food and then trying to discuss things. So all very dainty, very light, savory part to the afternoon tea. And also because you're going to have dinner afterwards as well, right? So not eating crusts, I mean, that just makes me think of what my mum always used to say, is that you have to eat your crusts because crusts make your hair curly. Have you heard that?
I've heard that, or that you'll get hair on your chest.
Oh,
if you eat the crust.
if you do, if you do or don't.
If you do.
If you do, you'll get hairs on your chest.
Yeah, I'm sure I've heard that before. I obviously recognised that that was a load of rubbish. So I enjoyed the crusts. I think I prefer the crusts more than any other part of the bread, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, especially if it's like, I love the end of the bread as well. I know that's quite controversial. Usually people, fight for not having the end of the bread, but I like the end of the bread. And yeah, a really crusty crust.
Do you know what the end of the bread is called? It has a name. I only found this out recently. No, it's called the heel. The heel of the bread. I think I've got that right. I'm sure my listeners will now be Googling the end of the bread. Is it called the heel? But yeah, I think it's called the heel.
Okay.
Yeah. I only have that if we are running low on bread and I'm desperate for toast or a sandwich, then I'll have it if that's all there is. But otherwise,
it also tends to be thicker. It tends to be thicker than the rest of the bread. And I am someone who loves a thick piece of bread. I remember my family always used to laugh at me and still remind me of this to this day, that when I was a little girl, I was a little bit overweight when I was younger, and partly because I loved bread and butter, and we would get unsliced bread. And so I would come in and try and cut myself a slice of bread, and it would start at the top like a proper slice, quite thin, and then it would just get thicker and thicker and thicker.
Like a wedge.
A wedge. We used to call it a doorstop. And then I'd put butter on it and I was happy.
In heaven.
Absolutely. Oh,
in bread heaven.
Bread heaven. White bread, butter,
wow.
Massive wedge. Very happy.
Do you eat much bread now?
No. I think in order to maintain a weight, I suppose I recognize that for me, and this is purely personal, bread, I can't enjoy too much bread. I love it and I have it again as a special treat, but I do enjoy gluten-free bread. Mm-hmm. There are so many varieties out there actually, that brown bread. So I don't allow myself to have too much, but when I do have it, I am reminded of good times when I was younger.
So if you are enjoying afternoon tea, what kind of filling would you expect in a sandwich?
So generally you can expect things, it depends on where you're going, but usually you'd have, was it salmon and cream cheese?
Mm-hmm.
You'd have maybe egg mayonnaise, cucumber sandwiches.
Oh, cucumber sandwiches.
It sounds so wrong, but it's so good. Mm-hmm. But you've got to have them fresh. You've got to have them at the time that you're making them, because otherwise the liquid, the moisture from the cucumber gets into the bread and it makes it soggy. And we don't want that.
We don't want soggy sandwiches.
Don't want soggy sandwiches. Coronation chicken, that's another one I've seen quite a few times.
Yeah, that's kind of like a curried chicken, isn't it? That was actually invented for the Queen's coronation.
Yeah, absolutely. With apricots in it, dried apricots. It's delicious. I'm a vegetarian, but I can still enjoy it with fake chicken. But yeah, so delicious. It's definitely worth a try.
Yeah, and prawn mayonnaise.
Of course, yeah, prawn mayonnaise.
Yeah, and with the egg, you mentioned egg mayonnaise, and that could be like egg and cress, but it would
Yes.
be egg mayonnaise with cress, or egg mayonnaise with tomato sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
and then you might have a ham and mustard, just a basic kind
yeah,
of straightforward, or a cheese sandwich.
cheese sandwich, cheese and tomato. But again, I suppose it's also making sure that, say with the egg, you've got to have the mayonnaise and things like that to make sure it binds together. So again, when you're eating it, it's not all falling out all over your lap.
No. Now, thinking about cucumber sandwiches, for a very short time, I don't know if you know this, Charlie, I worked at Buckingham Palace.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know this. So this was actually after we were at uni together. And when I first moved to London, I was very poor. I'd been a student for years and had no savings, moved to London to come and do my master's. And I just took all the work that was available to me, which involved, doing waiting on jobs. So being a waitress and a hostess and things like this. And I ended up working for a company that supplied the wait staff for the Queen's garden parties.
Wow.
And so I spent a summer serving, some very important people in Buckingham Palace Gardens. And they served cucumber sandwiches there, and it had like a mint kind of like dressing on it as well. It was absolutely delicious. And the thing with cucumber sandwiches is they have to be on white bread. It's definitely a white bread sandwich. Well, at least that's how the Queen has it.
Really?
Yeah.
Very nice.
And it was so structured as well for the Queen. When she would come out, they'd be saying, right, the Queen will appear at the door at 12:05. So that's when the pot must be boiled. And then she will make her way through the crowd talking to people. And by 12:13, she'll be taking her seat. And this is when her tea bag must go in, and it must sit in her teacup for, I don't know, she probably didn't have bags, actually. I didn't prepare her tea. But it was very rigid, the schedule for serving her tea and food.
Wow.
So yes, that's what I think of when I think of cucumber sandwiches is royalty.
Yes, it's definitely seen as a very posh, people would say, well, that's quite posh.
Yeah.
Having cucumber sandwiches.
Yeah, and you take the skin off the cucumber, don't you? So that's, at least that's how we did it there. And moving on, after our little selection of sandwiches, you move on to the next part, which is scone or scone. There's a lot of controversy about how you pronounce this word. Is it scone or is it scone? How do you pronounce it?
Well, to be honest with you, I think I've said it both ways several times in my life, but I think scone is what I tend to go with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, from what I'm told, that is the majority rules. So the majority of people do say scone, and that's considered the most correct way to say it. But some people do say scone, and that's okay too. Now, with your scone, you will have jam and cream. That's the custom. You can't have a scone without jam and cream. But the question is, in what order do you put the jam and cream onto your scone?
It's definitely different, isn't it? Is it Devon and Cornwall? They're the ones that determine, some will say in Devon it's one way, in Cornwall it's the other. And I don't know the answer to that. But I would probably say, I don't have the cream, I have to say. But if I was, I'd probably put that on first, because it's like the butter, right? And you put the butter on a sandwich first and then the cream. So that's what I would do. But I think it's personal preference.
I'm really impressed that you know about the Devon and the Cornwall thing there. But the answer to your question is Devon. They say that you should put the cream on first. So anyone in Devon would suggest cream goes first and the jam goes on last. But if you're in Cornwall, they say that the jam goes on first and the cream goes on afterwards. I think I'm like you. I think I put the cream on and then the jam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you spread it or do you use a spoon?
Oh, I use a spoon.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
then I do flatten it out with the spoon so it's not
Yeah.
too messy.
Yeah.
It's funny because I don't like cream, and I will not have cream with anything else. It has to be a part of the scone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ah, yes. I'm just a jam, straight jam. And the
Yeah,
scone
jammy.
has to have raisins. It has to have raisins. None of the
A
plain,
fruit scone. A fruit
Yeah.
scone.
none of the plain stuff.
Yeah, so you can have a fruit scone which has got raisins, currants in it, or a savoury scone. I think it's referred to. If it isn't a fruit scone, it's a savoury scone.
Or you have cheese scone.
Oh,
You can
I've
get
never
scones.
had.
Oh, yeah. Scones with cheese now.
So what do you do with those? Put butter on them?
Butter, or you can have a sort of cream cheese and chive spread.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah,
And do you like your scone warm?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I will accept a cold scone, but if it can be warmed, delicious.
Yeah, because they can be quite dry, I think. It can dry your mouth out. But if they're warm, they're just a bit softer and they melt a little bit more in your mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm getting hungry now.
I know, me too.
So after that, if you're not completely full by this point, then you're going to move on to the cake or the pastries. I think traditionally it was just cake. So you'd have a Victoria sponge if it was summertime, and you'd have a fruit cake, some form of fruit cake if it was wintertime. But from experience, when you go and have afternoon tea these days, they will have a selection, a variety of all sorts of different pastries or cakes, and they're usually quite small, little delicate things, very beautiful, very hard to finish it all. So I always need a doggy bag to take away the leftovers. It's funny that it's called a doggy bag. For those of you listening who have no idea what I'm talking about, if you're eating at a restaurant or a cafe and you haven't finished your food, but you're done and you need to go because you're full or because time is pressing, you can ask for a doggy bag. And this means that they'll take the food and place it into a takeaway box or bag so that you can take it home and finish it off later. And it's called a doggy bag, but it's not for dogs.
No, and it makes it sound horrible.
I know.
But it's a very nice thing,
Yeah.
because the food is so delicious, and sometimes it's even better the next day or cold.
Yeah.
And plus, you don't feel like you're insulting the restaurant by not finishing your meal.
Yeah, absolutely. And usually you pay a lot of money for the afternoon tea, so you don't want to waste anything. But do you have, you're a really good baker actually, aren't you? You bake your own cakes.
I do. I like baking. I wouldn't say I'm great. There are some things that I'm better at than other things. I feel like I'm known for my Christmas cake, and I have orders now. As I'm coming up to Christmas, people put their orders in for my Christmas cake, which is a very heavy fruit cake with then a layer of marzipan and a layer of icing over the top of that.
But with a very special ingredient.
Yes, brandy. There's quite a little bit of, and I think that's probably why mine are so popular, is because I'm a little heavy-handed with the brandy. So you're not allowed to drive when you have a slice of my Christmas cake. So I really enjoy making that. Sponge, I'm not so bad with. Meringues, I've never mastered the art of meringues ever.
Really? What do? They just end up sticky or not rising properly?
Burning them.
Oh.
Just, yeah, not, but I think out of cooking and baking, so making more savory things and baking sweet stuff, I definitely prefer the sweet stuff. I think it's my decoration at the end that perhaps is a little lacking. The taste, the flavor's good. The decoration. I remember I tried one year to make my sister a cake, and I was going to decorate it like Hansel and Gretel.
Right.
And so what I wanted was to make a roof out of cereal, so say like Weetabix or shredded wheat or something, to make it look like a thatched roof. Then I was going to have sweets around the window frames, all of these things. And I had this perfect idea in my head what it was going to look like. And it looked nothing like that. The cereal kept on falling off the roof.
Oh no.
Yeah. And just everything that I had in mind, you know, it looked like a mess. It looked like an absolute mess. So
But
in the
tasted
end,
good.
it tasted good, yes. So we enjoyed the taste, and Harriet sort of raved about how good it tasted, but there were no photos of it.
Oh, bless.
I
Bless.
know.
I made my son Jacob's first birthday cake because he has a dairy allergy, as you know. And I wanted to make the most delicious cake, but because of the dairy allergy, I think I used banana to bind it or something. And I put it in the oven, and the instructions said you need to put a knife into it when the time is done. And then if the knife comes out clean, it means the cake is cooked all the way through.
I know where this is going. I know where this is going. Okay.
I kept putting the knife in and pulling it out, and it kept coming out sticky. And I was like, oh no. So I kept putting it back in the oven for a little more time, until eventually it had been in the oven for twice as long as its original bake time. And I thought, this can't be right. And it was starting to go black and hard around the outside. So this is just burning. So I took it out and I cut it in half, and I let some cool, and I tried some, and it was delicious. And then I realized the reason it was sticky is because of the banana. It was always going to be sticky. But I'd now burnt the entire cake. So what I had to do was like carve a wedge off the top and off the sides just to save the softer stuff on the inside. And then I think I used green icing to decorate it, because all green, you know, the kind of softer, not the hard icing.
Oh.
You know, like you mix with butter, but I used like it was a mess. It was a mess. And so I bought a cake to go alongside it for the guests. And lo and behold, hardly anyone tried my cake.
Oh, I would have tried it. I love banana cake, and actually not eating sugar, bananas naturally sweeten the cake without having to use sugar, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Plus, you know, and you can hide a multitude of sins with icing. So I would have tried it.
Oh, thank you. I tell you what is great, actually, that we've recently discovered is putting a mashed banana in your porridge. Have you ever done that?
No.
Yeah, it's great. When you're cooking the porridge, mash up a banana, throw it in, mix it in as you're warming the porridge through. And it just, it's absolutely amazing. We did it once just by chance the other day, because we always experiment with flavors of our porridge. And now I don't like porridge without a banana mashed into it. It's lovely.
Plus, it's a good thing to do with bananas that are going quite brown.
Yeah.
You know, if you were just to cut it up, it would be a bit gross, but mashing it up, it's great. The other thing you can try as well is mashing a banana with an egg and frying it
as a pancake.
That's really good too.
Yeah, we do that sometimes. We tend to have very messy breakfasts, lots of cooking and mixing that goes on. Anyway, we're digressing. Let me pull us back and to the most important part of afternoon tea, which is tea, of course. Now, some people will serve Earl Grey, and in most places you would also expect English breakfast tea. But what do you like, English breakfast or Earl Grey?
I am definitely an English breakfast or builder's tea kind of girl. I do like Earl Grey, but I just feel it's a little bit too fragrant for me. English breakfast all the way.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
English breakfast is definitely the most commonly consumed tea in the UK. It's funny you said builder's tea, because when people say builder's tea, to me, I think about how strong the tea is. A builder's tea is when the tea bag has been in for a very long time, and it's almost like the spoon is standing up on its own because it's so thick.
Yeah. Oh, well, then that's not me, because I like my tea quite milky.
Right.
Yes. I know we have a friend who is from Yorkshire, a mutual friend, and I remember getting into a lot of trouble with her once, because when we went to the theatre together, we were going to share a cup of tea because we didn't have time to have one each. And you know those little packets of milk you can get, the little pots that come sealed? I put the whole thing in. I put, this whole tiny little pot of milk into the tea. she went crazy at me. She was so cross with me because typically up north in Yorkshire, they like their tea like builder's tea, very, very strong. And it wasn't even strong and like weak enough for me, but she got really cross with me. So I vowed never to share a cup of tea with anyone ever again.
Well, it is personal preference, isn't it? Everyone likes
is.
their tea differently. I don't like my tea bag to stay in the cup for too long once the water's in, because I don't like it strong at all. I can taste when the tea bag's been in for too long. If the tea bag stays in for a very long time, we call the tea stewed.
Yeah.
So if the tea is stewed, then for me it's quite bitter. And in fact, there's a brand of tea called Yorkshire tea. So we have things like PG Tips, Tetley tea, and Yorkshire tea. And Tetley tea tends to be naturally stronger. They might use a different type of tea leaf, or maybe they put more tea in the bag, but it is a stronger tasting tea, isn't it? But when you're having afternoon tea, they tend not to use tea bags. If you're somewhere really posh, they'll have loose leaf tea. And this is where it's not in a bag. It's, well, what is it? It's like in a strainer, isn't it? That you put the loose leaves into a strainer and you pour the water through the strainer.
Yeah, so the loose leaf herb, the tea, is put into the teapot with the water, and then you have your teacup, and you take this strainer that you place over your teacup, then you pour your tea, and then the water obviously goes through the strainer into your cup, and then the loose leaf, the tea, is then caught in the strainer. But you have to make sure that you definitely do that, because there is nothing worse than taking a mouthful of tea, realizing that the loose leaf tea is still in the cup,
floating around.
Yeah, that's not good.
Nice. Yeah, when you accidentally split a bag,
yeah,
you're making yourself a cup of tea. That's just not nice.
Upsetting. It's very upsetting.
Yeah. Now, some people like to have milk. Obviously, you like a lot of milk, so you'd have milk in your milk jug, and then you'll have a little bowl of sugar. I'm assuming you don't have sugar in your tea.
I don't have sugar. No, you can have sugar or sugar cubes. That's always cute. And then they give you that little the metal tongs to take your cubes out of the little sugar pot and then plop it into your tea.
Yeah. So yes, and in some places they might say 1 lump or 2.
Yeah.
So it could be a lump of sugar, or a cube of sugar.
Yeah.
I don't have sugar either. We're both quite healthy in that respect. We actually both worked in the same place, didn't we? We both worked as the dental receptionist for a dentist in London when we both lived in central London, which I always think is quite unusual. I think you maybe put me onto the job when you were leaving.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. But I think when you work in a dental setting, you can't help but become hyper aware of what things are really good for your teeth and what's really not good for your teeth.
Yeah, plus you get bad looks from the staff and the dentist if you're sitting there eating sweets or chocolate or something.
Yeah, absolutely. So some people might have lemon in their tea. Have you ever experienced afternoon tea where they brought out slices of lemon for you to have?
That's usually with an Earl Grey. So
right.
I don't know, it's more or less common, but usually you would have Earl Grey tea without milk and a slice of lemon in it. I've had it, it's refreshing, it's nice, but I think I'm programmed to think sort of tea should have milk. Apart from, I do like a peppermint tea or a green tea, so I wouldn't have milk in those. But I'm not a fan of the Earl Grey with lemon.
No. Peppermint tea is my bedtime drink. So once I've got the children to sleep, we try not to eat after 6 o'clock. So we eat dinner with the children between 4:30 and 6, and then we take the children up and start the bedtime routine. And I tend to emerge at like 8:30, 9 o'clock after they're down, and then have a large cup of peppermint tea, just to, have something soothing, but that's not got any fat or calories in, so that I'm kind of on this this intermittent fasting. I need to get 14 hours of no calorie intake.
And it's really nice. I love peppermint tea. Fresh mint tea as well. That's quite nice.
I like having that when you're away and they bring you the peppermint tea, fresh mint tea, and then when they pour it, so like if you're in I think it's the Moroccan thing, Turkey, where they lift the water up high, they lift the teapot high as they're pouring the liquid into your cup. It's
like
so
it aerates or something.
Yeah, but it's just very cool watching, that's the tradition. And the way that they have their tea, it's very cool.
Yeah. I did watch something yesterday about the etiquette of stirring your tea. So we tend to just turn off teaspoon in a circular motion, but apparently if you're following proper etiquette, very posh etiquette, I think you do something like 6-12, so you're almost running the spoon across the cup rather than spinning it around. That's supposed to be good to help the sugar dissolve and not to spill. I don't know. Sounds a bit unusual.
Then you have to take the spoon out and then glide it like along the rim of the cup in order to get rid of any drips.
Right.
And then place the spoon on the saucer rather than just pull it out and drop it down onto the saucer, obviously taking excess tea with you. You just slide the spoon along the rim of the cup to get rid of those extra drips.
Place it down. When you have a cup and saucer, because it's not typical now in a British home to drink tea with a cup and saucer. We drink tea from a mug, which we just refer to as a cup, but it's a mug technically. But when you do have a cup and saucer, do you hold the saucer up to your face, up to your chest, and then lift the cup off the saucer so you have it close in case of a drip? Or do you just lift the cup off the saucer, leaving the saucer on the table?
It's really interesting, actually, now you're saying that. I think what I do, depending on who I'm with and where I am, will depend on my demeanor. Do you know what I mean? And how I hold myself. If I feel like I'm in a rather posh place, then I will change the way that I eat to be more
refined,
more ladylike, shall we say. So in that case, I probably would bring the saucer up as well and hold the handle, thank you, with my fingertips, and then bring it up to my mouth. And then
pinky showing.
No, apparently you shouldn't do that. Apparently that's the opposite, of what you think it means. But so I do that. But if I'm with friends, or I'm just having a coffee somewhere and they've brought it to me in a cup and saucer, then I will probably even stick my fingers through the handle, grab the mug or grab the cup, and then drink it that way. So it completely depends on where I am and what I'm doing and what's expected of me. I suppose.
What version of yourself you're portraying to the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not trying to be not myself, but I just recognize in certain places and situations, there should be a level of, like I say, etiquette and things like that, and
there's an expectation of behaviour, isn't there? I think that the cup and saucer is ideal for holding a biscuit. So if you, and actually particularly if you are not sat at a dining table, if you are maybe sitting on a lounge or like a couch or in chairs, but there's no, maybe you just have a side table. But if you're holding your little saucer and you've got your little biscuit on the side, and then you can dunk your biscuit, if that's allowed, into your tea.
Did you see the Queen do it at Buckingham Palace?
Did she? Oh, I thought you were saying, did you see the Queen do it? Or you're asking, did I see the Queen?
I'm asking.
No, I wasn't really able to watch the Queen eat and drink. That was she would go to her own kind of marquee that was only she would have special vetted servants, waiters and people to look after her, and I was looking after people like Margaret Thatcher and other VIPs, but not her.
Okay.
So I didn't see whether she dunks her biscuit. I'm sure she probably does in private.
Did Margaret Thatcher dunk a biscuit?
Well, we didn't serve biscuits with the tea. They had their cucumber sandwiches and their pastries.
Maybe that's why.
You can't dunk a pastry. That would just be messy.
No, that's too far, Anna. Too far.
Now, afternoon tea, drink wise, obviously tea. You would never really see people drink coffee, but how about alcohol?
Mm.
Have you ever drank like champagne or some sort of sparkling wine with afternoon
Yes.
tea? Oh,
Yes, absolutely. It's lovely. It's because, again, like I say, it's often for a special occasion, a birthday or something like that. So to have a glass of prosecco. Now, I'm maybe controversial, but I'm more of a prosecco fan than I am a champagne fan. So yeah, a glass of prosecco when you first sit down, and that could be quite nice as well before the sandwich or the food comes out, is to sit and enjoy a glass of prosecco first
very
and
nice.
have a cheers.
Loosen you up.
Loosen me up, absolutely. Yes, I think they call is it high tea. It's a different name when you have alcohol
Oh,
involved.
right. I mean, I've heard of high tea, but actually that's something for me to look up. I don't know the difference.
Yeah, you can
But
have different versions.
interesting you mention about being controversial with Prosecco, but I think actually Prosecco is everyone's go-to in the UK because it's cheaper, and unless you can afford to buy champagne on a whim and have that as part of your afternoon tea, champagne is reserved for very special occasions otherwise, because it's so expensive. And actually, I think someone of an average palate who doesn't taste wine for a living wouldn't really be able to tell the difference between champagne and Prosecco. I might be saying something very controversial here, but for most people, Prosecco, it hits the spot, it does the job. Two very common phrases there. And it's much more affordable. So Prosecco all the way.
And obviously, as we know, Prosecco from Italy and Champagne from France. But I always like to have a piece of fruit in my Prosecco. So a strawberry or a raspberry, just to offset the sharpness sometimes.
Yeah. I love it when the fruit's been in there for a while and you finish your drink, and then I'm very unladylike and I grab a spoon or a fork and I scoop out the fruit. Or if no one's looking, I use my finger to scoop the fruit out and then eat that.
Yeah,
Terrible.
I use my fingers all the way.
Yeah. So our afternoon tea, obviously very yummy, very sweet. And also because of the pomp and the event that is afternoon tea, you have to have a very nicely presented table. So you would often have like nice clean white tablecloth, which is always a worry with me because I tend to make a bit of a mess. And you might have a placemat or one of those large dining plates, and then your actual plate on top, which I never really understood, but actually that large dining plate is acting like the placemat, isn't it? And then you'll have your napkin, which will be a cloth napkin, not a paper napkin. And that will be nicely folded, maybe held with a napkin ring, which is just a ring of metal to hold it nicely. My mum used to do the paper napkins, but she would fold them in like a fan, design, and have it in the glass, or put it out on the plate. I remember at Christmas or on Sunday lunches sitting there for ages, folding all these napkins to make them into fans. That was always fun.
Oh, I've never been round to yours and had a fan napkin. I think I'm going to make sure that you do that from now on.
Well, now the children are getting older, I'm getting in control again, and we can have nice meals once more. And then we talked about these cups and saucers, and it would be the best crockery would come out. It's the stuff that gathers dust in the cupboard most of the time. But if you're hosting a meal or afternoon tea at home, then you'd get your fine china out of the cupboard, dust it off and show it off. And then it's always nice to offset everything with a bunch of flowers, isn't it?
I love flowers. Yeah, always got to have fresh flowers, fresh ones as well. Beautiful. And I think people are going crazy now for table decorations. I know that whenever I'm having a dinner party or having a party of any description, I will pay particular attention to how I dress the table, because I want it all to look really pretty and it to be part of the experience as well. And I think when you go to a restaurant or a special place to have an afternoon tea, it is part of the experience, is how the table's dressed, and also how they deliver the food comes in tiers as well. You have a plate for your sandwiches at the bottom, and then the next tier up tends to be the scones. Or nowadays you can have things like savory muffins and things like that, so they'll add an extra an extra level to that. Then you can have the cakes on top of that, and again they come out beautifully presented. And
these are called cake stands with multiple tiers, so you have the plates layered up on these lovely cake stands. Yeah, fantastic. And you talked about, different places that you might experience afternoon tea. We've already spoken about restaurants, but some hotels also offer this experience as well. So even if you're not staying at that hotel, you can book in to go and have this experience of afternoon tea in their restaurant. And notable places in London, for those of you visiting the capital, are Claridge's, the Ritz, Selfridges, Harrods, and the Savoy. So these places do very posh and probably very expensive afternoon tea. Have you ever been to any of these places?
Have I? I feel like it's awful. I can't remember. I feel like I have been to one place, but I can't remember. The other thing to say is that you have to dress appropriately. If you go in jeans and you're looking quite scruffy, they will turn you away, which I think in some sense it's quite nice, because I think it's nice to have a sense of occasion, and it's nice to make an effort and have standards and things like that. So I think I'm a fan of that.
So formal attire, or is it like semi-formal?
Semi-formal. So you don't have to obviously go in a ball gown and top hat and tails, but you'd have to wear nice trousers. And I think you can actually wear jeans, but smart ones where they're tailored and you've got the rest of your outfit is put together. So you have to look presentable.
Gosh, it'd be embarrassing to be turned away, wouldn't it?
It would be. I think they do it I think my brother's been turned away.
Oh, really?
Yes. And I think they do it very nicely. They're very kind about it, but they say perhaps it's not appropriate, or do you have something else? And I think trainers, you're not allowed to wear trainers. They may have changed things now, but I know traditionally, and years ago when I perhaps would have gone, you did have to present yourself accordingly. But one of the best places, actually, I'm going to say two places that I've been to, the best for afternoon tea, and this will tell you a lot about me. You already know what I'm like, but my sister and I went to, I think it's called Lady Dinah's Crazy Cat Emporium,
right,
where you have afternoon tea surrounded by cats. Now, some people will be sitting there going, that's very unsanitary and that sounds gross, but it's right up mine and my sister's street. And you walk in and you get a table, and then all around you is decorated purely for cats. So you'll have a tree in the middle of the room that has branches that the cats can walk along. And then you've got loads of cat beds all over the place. And I remember Harriet and I getting there and being all fussy about the cats, like, oh, so cute, and just wanting to stroke them, all the rest of it. But then the food came out and we were like, right, forget the cats. Let's concentrate on what's important. And it was a delicious afternoon tea, really delicious, not just because of the cats, but the food was really yummy.
That's interesting. I wonder how much of your positive experience and the positive environment actually informed your taste buds and your perception of the food, because it can be altered by, your mood and your experience of the surroundings.
This is true, it's true, but I do think the sandwiches were extra specially delicious.
Right.
They also gave you a choice, so I think I chose all vegetarian options, and they had lovely things that I'd not had before, like sun-dried tomato and hummus.
Ooh,
it was really good. Really yummy, and they came in little rolls as well, rather than just the slices of bread, so it's just a little bit different. And I think we had a few more savory treats as well, but it was really yummy. And then the other place that I went to was up north again, Yorkshire, visiting a friend, and the reason I think I like this afternoon tea, because there was nothing delicate about it at all. The sandwiches were full on, huge
Like
sandwiches.
doorsteps.
Yeah. You then got a choice of a quiche or a pie, and then you had a slice of cake. So you absolutely needed a doggy bag by the end. But I just thought, now I'm getting my money's worth. This is this is amazing. But you certainly wouldn't want your dinner afterwards.
No.
It wasn't afternoon tea in that sense.
No. Well, I am certainly feeling hungry now after talking about all this food, and especially when you mentioned pie, because I am a northern girl at heart, and you can take me out of the north, but when you bring up the subject of pie, my stomach's like, give me
What's
some
your
pie.
favorite? What's your favorite pie?
I am, what's the phrase? I was a vegetarian, and then I wasn't a vegetarian, and now I'm trying to be vegetarian again, but taking small steps. So I'm trying to cut out red meat, for example, and any processed meats or smoked meats like bacon and hams and things like that. So I just eat chicken and fish at the moment, but phasing that out. But my favorite pie is like steak and ale pie, or meat and potato, which they don't do down here. We don't have meat and potato pies in the south. But I think they're just really rich and filling pie. I mean, pie is generally a quite, filling. They're quite comforting, heavy meals. But yeah, the richness of a steak and kidney, or a steak and ale pie with the gravy, it's just delicious.
Well, they call it comfort food, don't they? Because it's traditionally something you'd have on a cold day to warm you up. And like you say, it's a hug in a food. It's a way of feeling comforted, as you said.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Charlie, thank you so much for joining me and talking to me about food and tea, and in particular afternoon tea. We'll have to get together and do it together.
Absolutely, definitely. Yeah. I'll take you to Lady Dinah's Crazy Cat Emporium.
I would love to go. I'd love to go. I actually saw it on the news, and remember thinking how wonderful an idea that was. So yeah, I'd love to do that.
Right, we'll do that.
This is Nick and I talking about clothing. Let's go. So, Mr. Fashionista, I want to ask you about clothes.
No.
How do you think you're the kind of person who cares much about clothes, about how you look, your appearance?
So I recognise the importance of clothes.
Yeah, they're very important.
Yeah, you stay out of trouble if you've got them on.
Yes.
But they're not high up on my priority list. Work is important, it's definitely important, but compared to some of the people at work, and we all know the people in our own offices, right?
Yeah.
Some people love it.
Well, really kind of get dressed up to the nines.
Yeah. And so I work in banking, and don't hate me.
So you're in an office environment,
and I work in an office
London,
where
in London. Everyone kind of, tries to look good.
Yeah, and there's definitely a fashion.
Yeah.
Which I don't really subscribe to.
So you just rock up in an old suit that you've had for how long?
It's pre-pandemic.
Yeah. Do you think that you used to care more about your clothing before? Was there a time where you cared more about how you dressed? And obviously now you don't. And I think for me, as life has changed, I don't go out anymore. I don't socialise as much anymore because I'm more settled. I have a family. I've got you. I've got a family.
Yeah, you've given up a bit, right?
It's not that I've given up. It's just I think now it's more about being practical and being comfortable. Because when you've got young kids, you can't stay picking up after them. You can't be in like tight clothing and skirts and stuff. It's just not practical. Like young boys, they want to be picked up and thrown around and
throw up on you and stuff.
They throw up on you when they're young, not at this age now. But I just think my priorities have changed, and what I need from my clothing has changed. I don't need to impress so many people, and maybe I have just let myself go a bit. But has it changed for you?
So I remember at university, I had guy friends and girlfriends, and some of my female friends once said to me, "You're so into your fitness and you care about the way you look and you care about your hair. I had more of it then. Yeah, I just don't understand why you don't seem to care very much about your fashion. And I thought, it's a bit mean. No, I think about the clothes I wear and stuff. And then somebody else said it, and then like another person said it, and I was like, wow, I don't think I've got good fashion.
Okay.
But then, in the work environment before the pandemic, when everyone would be in the office 5 days a week, then your suit game is quite important. You have to wear nicer suits, and I'd go with people in my team who were really into their suits and their kind of city boy fashion and stuff. They were into their gilets and very much into like their high-end ties. A gilet is like a jacket without any arms on.
Okay.
But it's not a puffer jacket. A puffer jacket's like what a rude boy might wear, but a gilet is what somebody in the Alps might wear when they go skiing or something like that.
Okay, I'll have to look that up.
And things that people would wear.
I think I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
And it works quite nicely with if you wear like a shirt and a tie and you have a gilet and you go out, it's not too cold, then it looks all right. It's like a winter waistcoat.
Right.
I guess.
Okay.
But that there's loads of memes on social media about people that work in the city in London or in New York that are walking around with those gilets on and all that kind of stuff. So I'd go with people that were in my team that were very much into they'd say, look, I'm going to go and I talk to somebody about getting a tailored suit or something, and do you want to come? I say, I'll come and have a look, and then I kind of get pulled into it, and we'd look at fabrics, and they're like, no, you're the manager, you need to look at this, come on, let's get the more expensive one out.
Oh, really?
And they'd kind of egg me onto it a little bit. It's very common now that you can go and buy a suit off the peg, which means that you go into a shop, in the UK you might go to John Lewis or Marks and Spencer's. Then you might get one from Tesco's now as well.
Yeah.
And so you'd get, and you can get a nice suit, but they're built for standard physiques, right? And it's changed a little bit recently now because you don't just buy a shirt. So I went and bought some shirts the other day, and they had a standard fit, a loose fit, a tailored fit, and a skinny fit. Right. So they're recognising more now that you can choose like basically
different.
There's
body
more
shapes.
than one body shape. Yeah, there's not just a dad bod that people working in an office needs a suit. When you go to actually get a properly tailored suit, then you can make sure that you pick the fabric that you like, and they'll make sure. And for me, it's quite important. So I remember when I went for my college prom, I went to go and get a tux, and the guy said, do you want a tailored suit or do you want one off the peg? And I was like, well, I'm a student, so I'll just have one off the peg. And he said, I'll just measure for you. And I was doing a lot of exercise. Actually, this would have been end of university, I think. And he measured me around the chest, and he measured me around the waist, and he went, you're going to really struggle. And I was like, why? And he said, there's at the most about a 5 or 6 inch difference between your chest and your hips, and yours is 10.
Whoa.
And so because
I've got Tarzan.
Because I was doing a lot of exercise, and so I had a bigger, more muscly chest and back and things, but I've still got a waist because everything with a guy, right, that classic physique comes down quite tight. And that was at a time when they'd only sell one size shirt, right. And it was normally for,
Did you ever
older guys?
Did you ever get Wonder Web and like iron an extra seam?
Well, I did that.
Adjust your own clothes.
I did that last week.
Did you?
Yeah, so I bought a new pair of trousers, and I bought them off the peg.
Too long.
And they were a little bit too long, so I just folded it up, bit of Wonder Web in the seams. Yeah, ironed it in.
Notice that happening?
Looks great. Yeah, really nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So outside of the office and the suits, what do you and what do men generally wear in the UK? What are we looking at?
So it depends on age, right? Very, very age dependent because of the different types of lifestyles, the stuff they have in their wardrobes and things. Trousers, number one, just ultimate classic, obviously jeans. Jeans, same for everybody in the world, right? Yeah. Pretty much everywhere in the world.
I live in my jeans or my dungarees.
Yeah. So great, hard wearing, comfortable, you can brush dirt off them and all that kind of stuff, right? It's all good stuff.
And they look good.
As
long as the elastic's not gone and you've got like a saggy bottom, which exactly. I tend to have for most of my jeans.
Or holes in them and things.
Yeah.
So jeans, and then, if you're my sort of age and, chinos is quite a big thing. Chinos is like, is halfway between jeans and like suit trousers.
Yeah.
And nowadays, post-pandemic, suits are less of a thing. You know, smart casual chinos is what you'd wear. A lot of people might wear them out to a bar in the evening, to dinner. You know, if we went out for a dinner or something, then I'd probably wear chinos.
Yeah.
Look good with...
Really make an effort for me.
Yeah, really step it up, right? And then what you wear on your feet has got a bigger range, I'd say, right? So you got like running trainers, then you've got fashion trainers. So they could both be Nikes, right?
Yeah.
But one of them are much thinner and smaller. One of them's kind of the classic Nikes and things, or another brand. And then you've got like boat shoes and like leather shoes, and you can wear all of those in like a relatively like casual sort of way.
Yeah.
And then if you've got leather shoes, I mean, black leather shoes are a bit smarter. Brown leather shoes you can wear with chinos and things like that. You probably wouldn't ever see me wearing my black leather shoes in anything other than a suit.
Yeah. You do like shoes, don't you? You like trainers. You've got quite a lot of trainers.
Yeah, I think I do like
You
like
hog
shoes.
so much of the shoe rack. The family shoe rack is taken up by like 4 pairs of trainers.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need 4 pairs of trainers on the shoe rack, so I'm always kind of putting them back upstairs out of the
But
way.
it varies, right? We've got squash shoes,
Yeah.
and then we've got our gym
Yeah.
Nikes, and then I've got casual Nikes.
Well, you see, I
and
don't
then I've
have
got brown shoes that I wear for work
I
sometimes.
don't have gym
black
shoes and squash shoes. My squash shoes are my gym shoes. I don't have a separate pair of training trainers.
Yeah.
Just my court shoes. I hate shoes. I need them and they're important, but I'm not very good at buying shoes or matching shoes with my outfit. So I just kind of would just go for the easiest option. As long as it's flat and comfortable. I don't really do heels.
Yeah.
Do you do heels?
Sometimes. Do you know what? Some guys wear quite big heels now. You know, and they're concealed heels
Right.
in shoes
To get a bit more
to get a little
height.
bit more
That's
height to even
interesting.
stuff out.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's changing a lot.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess there's a bit more like of a popularity in social media around like some of these like conversations around what guys and women want, and I think guys are realizing that women like guys that are taller than them, and then they wear tall heels, and guys are like, well, I guess I'll wear some bigger heels.
Not good for your posture.
Not good
your
for your
back,
posture.
Your knees.
Yeah.
Things are changing on the shopping front as well, right? So where do you buy your clothes? Because you tend to just bulk buy. You just like, right, now I need some stuff, and just go and buy a load of stuff in one go, and then
like
you don't
panic
shop.
buying.
Well, you don't. Like lots of people will pick things up as they go. Like they'll get something every month. They'll pick up a top here, a pair of trainers there, different sales going on. You don't. You'll go for like 2 years and buy nothing new until there's holes in your stuff, and your things are falling apart, and then you go, I need to go shopping, and then you just bulk buy. But what do? Do you prefer to go into store and actually see and feel the things that you're buying and try them on?
Yeah, so, you know, it was a bit of a non-standard physique. Like, it's quite important for me to go and try stuff on. But part of the reason, so since you've known me, I think part of the reason why you think that I sort of bulk buy stuff is more to do with the circumstance that we're in, right? And actually,
tied to 2 children, not able to leave the house.
Exactly. So, you know, I have to literally say, I have to go and get some of these stuff now because of a specific thing that's coming up.
Yeah.
Like, you know, work at the moment has meant that I've needed to focus a little bit more on updating some of my wardrobe for work and making sure that I've got smarter things.
Yeah.
And so, because I haven't really had much of an opportunity to do that, or money outside of childcare.
The drain.
It's meant that there's been a bit of a pulse really of trying to go and get stuff. Because of that challenge as well around, well, I go into town a few times a week, right? To go into central London. But in order to be able to go somewhere that's not just 1 or 2 shops near work on the way home, I've got to go to a very different part of town. So it's a choice then between, do I come back and help you with the kids and see the children before they go to sleep or something? Or do I just say, well, I'm not doing any of that tonight because I'm going to go shopping for 2 hours because that's probably what it's going to take, even though I'm already in town. And so I end up buying more stuff online, and then just either crossing my fingers that it's going to fit, or probably almost inevitably going, well, it's not that bad, and then putting it in the cupboard and never wearing it again.
Yeah. We definitely need to have a big sort out, I think. Just go through everything and decide. I'm always doing a sort out. I think your wardrobe could do with a good.
She just wants some space. She's got her eye, she's had her eye on it since she's seen it.
Well, I think we'll leave it there. So, Mr. Fashionista, I want to ask you about clothes.
At the very beginning, I said Mr. Fashionista. If someone is described as a fashionista, then it's someone who is really interested in fashion. They follow the trends and the latest style, and they try to replicate that in their own wardrobe. So if you're a fashionista, then you're really interested in fashion.
No.
Do you think you're the kind of person who cares much about clothes, about how you look, your appearance?
So I recognise the importance of clothes.
Here, Nick says, I recognise the importance of clothes. If you recognise something, it's not just a case of seeing something and it be familiar to you. In this context, to recognise something is to accept that it is true.
Yeah, they're very important.
Yeah. You stay out of trouble if you've got them on.
Yes.
But they're not high up on my priority list. Work is important. It's definitely important. But compared to some of the people at work, and we all know the people in our own offices, right?
Yeah.
Some people love it.
Well, really kind of get dressed up to the nines.
Here I said to get dressed up to the nines. If you get dressed up to the nines, then it means that you really get dressed up. So it's not just a case of chucking on a t-shirt and a pair of trousers. It's really wearing your smartest, nicest clothes because you want to look good, you want to make a good impression. Often we get dressed up to the nines to attend an event or for a specific purpose.
Yeah. And so I work in banking. And don't hate me.
Here, Nick said, don't hate me, after telling us that he works within a bank. The reason he says, don't hate me, is that there generally is, in this country, probably in other countries as well, a dislike for the bank and bankers, as there is a dislike in general for politicians. This idea that everyone who works in authority and controls the laws and the money, that these people are just all corrupted and evil and terrible. Of course, in reality, that's not true. There are many good-willed, honest, hardworking people who work within government and within banks. You can't tar everyone with the same brush, but generally there is you work in banking. So that's why he said, don't hate me. I'm a nice person and I can vouch for that.
So you're in an office environment in London where everyone kind of, tries to look good.
Yeah, and there's definitely a fashion,
yeah,
which I don't really subscribe to.
Here, Nick said there's a fashion that he really doesn't subscribe to. Now, you'll understand the word subscribe in the context of YouTube and other social media platforms. If you subscribe to a person or a channel, then you are following them. You're saying, yes, I want to follow this person and see more of their content, which if you're not subscribed to my channel, please do click on that button. In this context, he's saying he doesn't subscribe to a fashion. So this means that he doesn't agree with or support that particular trend, that particular thing, that particular fashion. So if there's something that you do not go along with, an opinion or a belief that you do not follow, then you could say, I don't subscribe to that.
So you just rock up in an old suit that you've had for how long?
Here I use the phrasal verb to rock up. If you rock up at a place, then it means that you arrive, you turn up. It usually has a sense of being quite relaxed and confident and just kind of turning up. Normally, I would use this if someone was turning up maybe late and not seeming to care that they're late, or turning up in inappropriate dress, but just having a sense of being relaxed and uncaring. He just rocked up. We've all been here since 8 a.m. working really hard, and you just rock up at 10 a.m. without even saying good morning.
It's pre-pandemic.
Yeah. Do you think that you used to care more about your clothing before? Was there a time where you cared more about how you dressed? Obviously now you don't. I think for me, as life has changed, I don't go out anymore. I don't socialise as much anymore because I'm more settled. I have a family. I've got you. I've got a family.
Yeah, you've given up a bit, right?
It's not that I've given up. It's just I think now it's more about being practical and being comfortable. Because when you've got young kids, you know, you're constantly picking up after them. You can't be in like tight clothing and, you know, skirts and stuff. It's just not practical. Like young boys, they want to be picked up and thrown around
And throw up on you.
Here's another phrasal verb, throw up. This basically means to vomit. Blech.
They throw up on you when they're young, not at this age now. But I just think my priorities have changed and what I need from my clothing has changed. I don't need to impress so many people, and, you know, maybe I have just let myself go a bit. But has it changed for you?
To let yourself go is to no longer care about yourself and your appearance and your health. So if you let yourself go, then you've probably gained a few pounds in weight. I don't have a beard, but if you do, then you've probably stopped shaving. So your hair has grown out. Maybe I haven't had a trim or even brushed my hair for a while. Maybe I'm not washing. Maybe I'm not as hygienic. I don't know why I have to do my armpits at that point. To let yourself go is just to stop looking after yourself. So you probably don't look as good as you normally would. You don't feel as good as you normally would. If you let yourself go, you stop caring.
So I remember at university, I had, you know, guy friends and girlfriends, and some of my female friends.
Here, Nick talks about his guy friends and girlfriends, and then later repeats and says female friends. So it's quite an interesting thing that we have here where we talk about our boyfriends and our girlfriends, and they are usually our romantic partners. So a boyfriend would be the male romantic partner, a girlfriend would be the female romantic partner. So if I talk about my boyfriend, I'm talking about the person I'm intimately connected with, who I live with and share my life with. But you can also refer to your male friends and your female friends, so the people you're just friends with, but when you're talking about their gender, you can also refer to them as your boyfriends and your girlfriends. But it becomes very hard to understand just from ear the difference. So if I'm talking about my boyfriend and my boyfriend, you can't tell the difference. Context doesn't really help you in this case. So what we tend to do is say my male friends or my guy friends, and you'd normally say my female friends, although a lot of girls do say my girlfriends, but it is difficult to make that distinction. So I just wanted to point that out so you can be aware of that, and then you have to be, you know, really listening very carefully to work out what the relationship is.
Once said to me, you're so into your fitness and you care about, you know, the way you look and you care about your hair. I had more of it then. I just don't understand why you don't seem to care very much about your fashion. And I thought, it's a bit mean. No,
The word mean means, in this context, unkind or cruel. So if I am making myself a nice dessert and I make one for my eldest son and my youngest son, but I don't make one for my partner, he might say, hey, why have you not made me one? And I'd say, because I didn't want to. You've let yourself go, you're a bit fat. And then he'd say, that's a bit mean. And he would be absolutely right. That is mean. That's unfair. That's unkind. And of course, I wouldn't do that.
I think about the clothes I wear and stuff. And then somebody else said it. And then like another person said it. And I was like, wow, I don't think I've got good fashion.
Okay.
But then, you know, in the work environment, before the pandemic, when everyone would be in the office 5 days a week, then your suit game is quite important.
Okay, here Nick talks about his suit game. Now, this is not a common phrase. You don't need to learn this, but what he's doing by adding the word game after suit is he's suggesting that getting dressed up is like a game. So when you go into work, you are playing at being smart and sophisticated and intelligent. It's all a game, like the game of life, the game of work, the game of love. And here he's talking about his suit game. So he's introduced that idea, that sense of everyone competing to look good, to look the part, to look like they belong in the bank, in London. So it's not a common phrase, but he's talking about the game of getting dressed up and looking the part, his suit game.
You have to wear nicer suits, and I'd go with people in my team who were really into their suits and their kind of city boy fashion and stuff. They were into their gilets and very much into like their high-end ties. A gilet is like a jacket without any arms on.
Okay.
But it's not a puffer jacket. A puffer jacket's like what a rude boy might wear, but a gilet is what...
Okay, here Nick mentioned being a rude boy. Now, he doesn't mean a boy who has no manners. It's not about being rude. A rude boy is a term for a subculture, like section of society, a group, usually young teenagers, often this idea of them being quite streetwise, cool, maybe rebellious. I don't understand enough about what makes someone a rude boy. I guess you could tell by their fashion, the kinds of people they hang around with. I don't know. He also mentioned city boy before that. And a city boy is someone who is very much part of the city culture, the business city culture, trying to look the part, wearing very smart suits or designer shirts and nice shoes, and going out to the bars and the clubs and partying hard, working hard, just trying to run the rat race, basically.
Somebody in the Alps might wear when they go skiing or something like that.
Okay, I'll have to look that up.
You know, and things that people would wear.
I think I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
To look something up is a separable phrasal verb, and it very simply means to look within a reference book or to look on the internet to find some information. So if I don't know what a word means, I will look it up. If I want to learn more about someone who's applied for a job within my company, I'll maybe look them up on the internet, see if I can find something about them on LinkedIn or any other social media platforms.
And it works quite nicely with if you wear like a shirt and a tie and you have a gilet and you go out, it's not too cold, then you know it looks all right. It's like a winter waistcoat,
Right.
I guess.
Okay.
But that, you know, there's loads of memes on social media about people that work in the city in London or in New York that are walking around with their gilets on and all that kind of stuff. So I'd go with people that were in my team that were very much into they'd say, look, I'm going to go and, you know, talk to somebody about like getting a tailored suit or something.
Here we hear tailored suit. A tailored suit or anything that's tailored has been made specifically for a purpose. So if I had a tailored suit or a tailored dress, it would be a dress that has been measured and fitted specifically to my body. So often men get tailored suits that are specifically made and sized to them.
And do you want to come? So I'll come and have a look, and then I kind of get pulled into it and we look at fabric.
If you get pulled into something, you are encouraged and you are made to participate, usually against your will. I mean, it's not like forcing you, like kidnapping you and forcing you to do something, but it's like with strong encouragement and maybe some light-hearted blackmail. You are being pulled into something. You're encouraged to participate.
And they're like, no, you're the manager. You need to look at this. Come on, let's get the more expensive one out.
Oh, really?
And they'd kind of egg me onto it a little bit.
Egg me on. They kind of egg me on. Now, to egg someone on or to egg on someone is to encourage them with words. Come on, you can do it. Yeah, come on. To give them words of encouragement to try and get them to keep going or to do something that they're not really keen to do.
It's very common now that you can go and buy a suit off the peg.
Here, Nick says off the peg. This phrase means to take something that's literally already ready to buy, hanging on a peg within a shop. So it'll be on a hanger, hanging on a peg, and you take it off and take it straight to the checkout and buy it. So it's all ready. You don't need a tailor to make it for you.
Which means that you go into a shop, you know, in the UK, you might go to John Lewis
or
Marks and Spencer's. Then you might get one from Tesco's now as well.
Yeah.
And so you'd get, and you can get a nice suit, but they're built for standard physiques.
The word physique just basically means your body shape. We talk about muscular physiques. That would be a body that is muscly, basically, lots of muscles. A standard physique would be the kind of average physique that you see that most people have. Although, is there ever really a standard physique?
Okay.
right? And it's changed a little bit recently now, because you don't just buy a shirt. So I went and bought some shirts the other day, and they had a standard fit, a loose fit, a tailored fit, and a skinny fit. Right. So they're recognising more now that you can choose like that basically
different.
There's
body
more
shapes.
than one body shape. Yeah, there's not just a dad bod that people working in an office needs a suit.
Dad bod. A dad bod is the body of a dad. The idea is that once you become a father, you're so busy looking after baby and mum, the house, everything, that you aren't able to look after yourself anymore. You let yourself go. You stop going to the gym, you stop exercising, you snack more because you're so tired. And so you start to become less toned and have more of a tummy. So you have a dad bod.
When you go to actually get a properly tailored suit, then you can make sure that you pick the fabric that you like, and they'll make sure, and for me it's quite important. So I remember when I went for my college prom, I went to go and get a tux.
A prom. A prom is like a function, a big dance event that you have to celebrate the end of your time within an educational facility. So Nick said he had a prom at college, and then he thinks that actually it was at university. I had a prom at the end of my university degree. So after 3 years, we had a prom. So it was a big, not a ball, but a very formal dance event. There's music, there's food, there's drink. Everyone wears their gorgeous gowns and the men wear their suits. That's a prom. And Nick actually talked about wearing his tux. A tux is short for tuxedo.
And the guy said, do you want a tailored suit or do you want one off the peg? And I was like, well, I'm a student, so I'll just have one off the peg. And he said, I'll just measure for you. And I was doing a lot of exercise. Actually, this would have been university, end of university, I think. And he measured me around the chest and he measured me around the waist, and he went, you're going to really struggle. And I was like, why? And he said, there's
Here Nick said, and I was like, we use this. Some people use it more than others. We use this to say how you said something, to say what you said and how you said it. So if you're literally repeating or giving a very clear indication as to what your response was when you're telling a story about something that happened, then you might use this phrase. So I was like, what? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, no. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, that's unbelievable. And she was like, you don't even know the half of it.
At the most about a 5 or 6 inch difference between your chest and your hips, and yours is 10.
Whoa.
And so because
I've got Tarzan.
because I was doing a lot of exercise, and so I had a bigger, more muscly chest and back and things, but I've still got a waist because everything with a guy, right, that classic physique comes down quite tight. And that was at a time when they'd only sell one size shirt, right. And it was normally for,
Did you ever
older guys?
Did you ever get Wonder Web and like iron an extra seam?
Wonder Web it's something you can buy in the store. Wonder Web is the brand, and it's a product that you can use to stick material to material. So it sticks fabrics together. Wonder Web is specifically designed to help you to tailor your clothes a little bit. So usually if you've got very long trouser legs, so your trousers are too long, or maybe your sleeves are too long, you would it's basically like a glue, a dried glue that's in a ribbon, and you place it on the fabric and you fold the fabric over, and so that you've got the glue in between, but it's dry so it won't stick. Then you get your iron and you put hot steam onto the fabric, and it melts the glue and instantly sticks the fabric to the other fabric. So you create a new seam. And a seam is where in clothing, where material meets material and then is sewn into place. So for example, here I probably got a seam here. On this top, I've got a seam for decoration here and a seam here. You have seams down the sides of your trousers. Probably have a seam in the side. Yes, I do. And one on here.
Well, I did that.
Adjust your own clothes.
I did that last week.
Did you?
Yeah, so I bought a new pair of trousers and I bought them off the peg.
Too long.
And they were a little bit too long, so I just folded it up, bit of Wonder Web in the seams, yeah. Ironed it in.
Notice that happening?
Looks great. Yeah, really nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So outside of the office and the suits, what do you and what do men generally wear in the UK? What are we looking at?
So it depends on age. right? Very, very age dependent because of the different types of lifestyles, the stuff they have in their wardrobes and things. Trousers, number one, just ultimate classic, obviously jeans. Jeans, same for everybody in the world, right? Yeah. Pretty much everywhere in the world.
I live in my jeans or my dungarees.
Yeah. So great, hard wearing, comfortable.
Hard wearing. When something is hard wearing, then it isn't easily damaged. So jeans are hard wearing because you can't easily rip or wear down jeans.
You can brush dirt off them and all that kind of stuff, right? It's all good stuff.
And they look good.
As
long as the elastic's not gone and you've got like a saggy bottom.
So here I talk about the elastic not being gone and having a saggy bottom. If you describe elastic as being gone or something that's functional being gone, what I'm saying is it's done, it's not working properly anymore. So in this case, the elastic has lost its elasticity. So it's no longer tight and stretchy. It's actually quite loose. It doesn't pull back anymore. So when your elastic has gone, your clothes normally become loose and saggy. When something sags, it means that the effects of gravity just allows it to drop down. It's no longer tight, it's saggy.
Which I tend to have most of my jeans.
Or holes in them and things.
Yeah.
So jeans. And then, if you're my sort of age and, chinos is quite a big thing. Chinos is like,
You may have noticed that Nick was saying chinos is, where chinos, jeans, and trousers are all plural. So actually, Nick should have said chinos are, as you would say trousers are, jeans are, because they're plural. Here it's just a very common, happens all the time, native grammatical error. Sometimes, or very often in spoken English, natives make mistakes and we just accept it. You'll be surprised how many mistakes that native speakers make. Don't look at that and go, what rule am I missing? You're not missing a rule. We're just breaking the rules. So stress less and just accept.
Halfway between jeans and like suit trousers. Yeah. And nowadays, post-pandemic, suits are less of a thing. Smart casual chinos is what you wear.
Here, Nick says that post-pandemic suits are less of a thing. Now here, when he says it's less of a thing, he's saying it's less important. We talk about things being a big thing or a big deal, meaning it's important, or it's not a big thing. It's not a big thing. It's not important. Don't put a lot of weight or pressure on it. So here he says pandemic suits are less of a thing. They're less important. And then he says, smart casual chinos is what you'd wear. Smart casual is a phrase given to the style of clothing that's required for a particular occasion or event. So if you see that there's a party going on and you're invited to the party and then it says smart cash or smart casual, then it's saying please dress in smart casual attire. So it doesn't have to be super smart, tuxedo, full suit. It should maybe be smart trousers and a shirt. No tie, no jacket, or maybe a jacket, but no tie. Don't make it really formal.
A lot of people might wear them out to a bar in the evening, to dinner. If we went out for a dinner or something, then I'd probably wear chinos.
Yeah.
Look good with...
Really make an effort for me.
Yeah, really step it up, right?
Here, the phrase step it up means to make more effort, to do more, to raise the bar, which is another idiom, to bring up your level. So if I'm at the gym, I'm on the treadmill and I'm doing a casual walk, I might want to step it up a bit. I might want to make more effort. So I go into a jog, and then I might want to step it up again and go into a fast run, and then a sprint until I'm falling off. So to step it up is to take it up a level, to try harder, to achieve something more.
And then what you wear on your feet has got a bigger range, I'd say, right? So you got...
Here, Nick says, what you wear on your feet has got a bigger range, I'd say. Now, when you add I'd say or I would say to a statement, either before or after the statement, then you're basically letting the listener know that it's your opinion, not something that you know as fact.
You got like running trainers, then you've got fashion trainers. So they could both be Nikes, right? Yeah. But one of them are much thinner and smaller. One of them's kind of the classic Nikes and things, or another brand. And then you've got like boat shoes and like leather shoes, and you can wear all of those in like a relatively like casual sort of way.
Yeah.
And then if you've got leather shoes, I mean, black leather shoes are a bit smarter. Brown leather shoes you can wear with chinos and things like that. You probably wouldn't ever see me wearing my black leather shoes in anything other than a suit.
Yeah. You do like shoes, don't you? You like trainers. You've got quite a lot of trainers.
Yeah, I think I do like
You
like
hog
shoes.
so much of the shoe rack. The family shoe rack is taken up by like 4 pairs of trainers.
To hog something is to take more than your fair share, or to hold and hoard something so you keep it for yourself so that no one else can have it. For example, if we are sitting watching TV together and we have the remote control to control the TV and we have a big bowl of popcorn, so we're watching a movie or something, or we're flicking through some different options, and you hold the remote control and you don't let me have a say, and you hold the bowl of popcorn and you're eating it and you're not letting me get access to the bowl, then you are hogging. You're hogging the remote control and you're hogging the popcorn. So I might say, stop hogging the popcorn, give it here. In this case, I said that Nick was hogging, or that he hogged so much of the shoe rack. A shoe rack is like a set of shelves specifically for shoes. So we have 2 shoe racks in our corridor, our entrance hall, where we enter the house, take off our shoes, put them on the shoe rack. And then I say that the family shoe rack is taken up by. If something is taken up by, then it is used by, it is given to. So I could say my time is taken up by the children and my work. My time is consumed, is used by the children and my work. There's no spare time for me.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need 4 pairs of trainers on the shoe rack, so I'm always kind of putting them back upstairs out of the way.
But it varies, right? We've got squash shoes,
Yeah.
and then we've got our gym
Yeah.
Nikes, and then I've got casual Nikes.
Well, you see,
and then I've got brown shoes that I wear for work sometimes.
I don't have gym
black
shoes and squash shoes. My squash shoes are my gym shoes. I don't have a separate pair of training trainers.
Yeah.
Just my court shoes. I hate shoes. I need them and they're important, but I'm not very good at buying shoes or matching shoes with my outfit. So I just kind of would just go for the easiest option. As long as it's flat and comfortable. I don't really do heels.
Yeah.
Here I say I don't really do heels. Do is replacing the verb wear. And we often use this. I don't do canteens. So if you're not someone who likes to eat in a canteen, you might say, I don't do canteens. Or if you're someone who doesn't like to ride on a bus, you might say, oh, I don't do buses. If I don't like taking the lift, I won't take the lift, which is like the elevator. I'd rather walk down the stairs because I'm a little bit scared of lifts. So I'd say, I don't do lifts instead of saying I don't ride or get into a lift.
Do you do heels?
Sometimes. Do you know what? Some guys wear quite big heels now. You know, and they're concealed heels in shoes
to get a bit more
to
height.
get a little bit more
That's
height to even stuff out.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's changing a lot.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess there's a bit more like of a popularity in social media around like some of these like conversations around what guys and women want, and I think guys are realizing that women like guys that are taller than them, and then they wear tall heels, and guys are like, well, I guess I'll wear some bigger heels.
Not good for your posture.
Not good for your
back,
posture.
Your knees.
Yeah.
Things are changing on the shopping front as well, right? So where do you buy your clothes? Because you tend to just bulk buy. You're just like, right, and now I need some stuff, and just go and buy a load of stuff in one go.
Here on the shopping front, what I'm talking about here is the topic of shopping, or on the subject of shopping. So I'm saying, look, while we're talking about shopping, where do you buy your clothes? So on the shopping front, I might then say, changing the subject, on the relationship front, how did your date go the other night? On the diet front, did you manage to make that amazing chili con carne the other day? So you're just using the word front to replace subject or topic. Bulk buy means to buy in bulk. If you bulk buy, then you buy something in a great quantity in order to save money. So if you know that you're going to be using lots of toilet roll because you have lots of little people in the house who are going to the toilet several times a day, then rather than just buying 6 toilet rolls, it might be cheaper for you to buy 20 toilet rolls. So you bulk buy a load of stuff in one go. In one go just means at the same time. If you do something in one go, you do many things at the same time.
And
More
then
like
you don't
panic
shop.
buying.
Well, you don't, like lots of people will pick things up as they go, like they'll get something every month. They'll pick up
Yeah.
a top here, a pair of trainers there, different sales going on. You don't. You'll go for like 2 years and buy nothing new until there's holes in your stuff, and your things are falling apart, and then you go, I need to go shopping, and then you just bulk buy. But what do you do? Do you prefer to go into store and actually see and feel the things that you're buying and try them on?
Yeah, so, you know, it was a bit of a non-standard physique. Like, it's quite important for me to go and try stuff on. But part of the reason, so since you've known me, I think part of the reason why you think that I sort of bulk buy stuff is more to do with the circumstance that we're in, right? And actually,
Tied to 2 children, not able to leave the house.
Exactly. So, you know, I have to literally say, I have to go and get some of these stuff now because of a specific thing that's coming up.
Yeah.
Here, Nick made a mistake. He said, I have to go and get some of these stuff now. And that just is a good example of how when we're speaking, we don't know what we're going to say. It's just coming out of our mouths at the moment that we're thinking it. And so I think what Nick was about to say was, I have to go and get some of these things. But then he changed to say some stuff, but got confused, didn't quite get the sentence out right, and said some of these stuff. So that's a mistake.
Like, you know, work at the moment has meant that I've needed to focus a little bit more on updating some of my wardrobe for work and making sure that I've got smarter things.
Yeah.
And so because I haven't really had much of an opportunity to do that, or money outside of childcare,
The drain.
it's meant that there's been a bit of a pulse really of trying to go and get stuff. Because of that challenge as well around, well, I go into town a few times a week, right, to go into central London, but in order to be able to go somewhere that's not just 1 or 2 shops near work on the way home, I've got to go to a very different part of town. So it's a choice then between, do I come back and help you with the kids and see the children before they go to sleep or something, or do I just say, well, I'm not doing any of that tonight because I'm going to go shopping for 2 hours, because that's probably what it's going to take, even though I'm already in town. And so I end up buying more stuff online, and then just either crossing my fingers that it's going to fit.
To cross your fingers is to do this. It's to hope that something will or will not happen. So you normally state what you want and then say, cross my fingers that it will happen. So in this case, he's crossing his fingers that the clothes that he's bought online will fit.
Or probably almost inevitably going, well, it's not that bad, and then putting it in the cupboard and never wearing it again.
Yeah. We definitely need to have a big sort out, I think. Go through everything and decide.
To sort out, or to have a sort out, means to go through things with the intention of putting things into the right place, so tidying things up, but also potentially downsizing, removing some things, getting rid of them perhaps. So it's to organize and clear things up. You sort things out. I need to have a big sort out of the playroom. There's lots of toys now that are for my younger children, and my children are getting bigger now. So I would probably sell some of the things that are still really nice and maybe give some things to charity, maybe pass some things on to friends with younger children and babies. I'll have a big sort out. I also said to go through. To go through is another phrasal verb, and it means to methodically search through things, again with an intention of organizing or getting rid of things. You go through it in an organized way.
I'm always doing a sort out. I think your wardrobe could do with a good...
She just wants some space. She's had her eye on it since she's seen it.
Here, Nick said that I had my eye on it. If you have your eye on something, it means that you're watching something because you desire it. So you're waiting for something to become available, or you're waiting for an opportunity where you can take something because you want it.
Well, I think we'll leave it there. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did find any value in this lesson today, then please give this video a like, be sure to subscribe, and why not leave me a comment to tell me which word or phrase you found most interesting.